No, we keep that one open. Yeah. Just in case any public comes in. Don't want them getting the wrong idea, you know? We just don't want anyone coming behind us and tackling us, you know? Good. Good, Sally. Everyone's good? Okay. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. September 5th, 2023. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, all. We do have a quorum present with all 5 commissioners in attendance today. Hope everyone had a great Labor Day weekend. It does feel like the Mondayest Tuesday ever this morning, but we do have a busy one ahead, so we'll get right into it here. Commissioners, if you've had a chance to review the agenda and there's no changes, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the agenda.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. First on the agenda is county resident comments and concerns. At this time, if there's anyone online or in the audience who would like to address the governing body with any issue whatsoever, now would be the appropriate time. Morning, Mr. Corsi.
Good morning, Chairman West, fellow commissioners. I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate the heads up and seeing the press regarding this meeting specific to the BLM RMP draft that was released on August 17th. I wanted to use this opportunity just to highlight a couple of things. Certainly, I think it's worth noting we've been involved and engaged to this process now for more than a decade and a half. Many of you may recall the very first picnic that was held at Veterans Park in Rock Springs in 2008, as this is an aged and stoic document that has been under a very lengthy and just bureaucratic process of revision. To see this come out in the timing of when it came out and then the results of this, I think there was a shock and awe is the only way I could describe that by everybody who probably were privy to seeing this and have taken the interest in it. Certainly as a coalition involved with several other sporting groups and NGOs, including the Steelworkers Union in Southwest Wyoming, both municipalities of Rock Springs and Green River, including the county commission, we have worked hard to have the support of those entities over that duration of a decade and a half. Essentially, the ask has been to limit what is accounting for 15% of the entire Rock Springs field office, about 522,000 acres that has been identified as the greater Little Mountain area, to limit some of the development within that landscape, knowing that, as our former county commissioner called it, the gem or the Yellowstone of Sweetwater County. This draft RMP release, I think, exceeded all expectations in what they have done. There were 4 alternatives, including the preferred alternative they're calling the conservation alternative, which was actually a terminology that was actually dictated under the Trump administration and when they were at the helm of this process. That was a carryover to this current administration, but it's also known as alternative B. The Little Mountain proposal that we had submitted that had over 2,500 sportsmen and anglers support, as well as the 2019 county commission and both municipalities of Rock Springs and Green River. That is what is called alternative D in this current release. And so that closely aligns with what our ask was. It was not anti-oil and gas. It was truly just recognizing that there were some areas within that landscape that we wanted to see protected for generations to come. I think in looking at this and the comments and the discussions that have taken place, I think the important thing to note that a lot of people still don't, I think, have a full understanding of is that this RMP draft, when it does reach a record of decision, it does not impact the 1.8 million acres of leased land that is currently leased, that is undeveloped, within the Rock Springs field office, which is a pretty significant amount of landscape. It does not even limit land development and energy development within the Little Mountain area, as there's still quite a few existing leases in that Salt Wells area. And that was part of our initial proposal as well, recognizing that those were in place. We just wanted to make sure that some of those areas in Red Creek, Sugarloaf Basin, Current Creek, that they would stay the way that they are today for future generations to enjoy. Striking a balance is difficult. There's no question that's a hardship that all of us bear, but it's also a challenge that we all, I think, adhere to and are willing to be in that arena to know that it takes our engagement. There are many, when you manage for multiple use, there are a lot of challenges, certainly. At the end of the day, I think, again, our 15% of this entire Rock Springs field office is where our focus has been. There are quite a few protections in place with this draft RMP that impact the southern red desert to Hoback mule deer migration corridor, which certainly is in our wheelhouse. But our focus and my focus here today before you is to talk about the Little Mountain area. So with that, I would be more than happy to stand for any questions. I've seen some things that have come out that I think have been misrepresented. And I just wanted to be sure that I could be in front of you to answer any of the questions you might have or concerns.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate you coming. Yeah, some of those articles were a little misleading just because we haven't really had any discussion here about it, but I know it's been an ongoing process over the last, decade plus. And so it was a shock to some of us just to see even, this preferred alternative rolled out so quickly. It felt like it wasn't quick in that it took this long to get to this point, but now it's on our forefront and we've got 90 days to respond. And so I think, for myself, especially, it's taken some time to sort through it all. And I think it was only about 1,300 pages. So got some studying to do in that realm, but I know there's been other commissioner that's been involved with this for quite some time. So we do have it on the agenda today to kind of discuss and get some background on, but is there any comments or questions any of you other commissioners have?
Yes.
Commissioner Tillman?
I just appreciate Josh Corsi coming. I mean, he called me the other day and I asked him to come and try to clarify the article, and I appreciate that you did that. And I know your heart is with the wildlife as it is for all of us, but the point is if they go with alternative B instead of D, you may not have muley fanatics because we might not have jobs. We might not have income in this county.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line.
Yeah, there are some significant impacts, and I think it definitely warrants looking this over with a fine-tooth comb. I think the body as a commission, I think you carry great weight in being able to have influence, and I think that your voice is needed for that. Again, this is about balance, and I think that the devil will be in the details. But alternative D, that was an effort that, again, a decade and a half worth of effort, bringing all stakeholders together, including visiting with current leasees within the area, what their intentions and plans were. I think that closely aligns with what has had a decade and a half of support leading up to this. The release of this, the timing of it, there's all kinds of strategies probably in play there, knowing a record of decision like this and the congressional act of being able to overturn something like this within that 6-month period of our current administration's leadership. I think there's some things at play here, and this warrants full attention that it can be had. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards?
Josh, thank you for being here, and I appreciate your comments on this. I agree with you that Little Mountain absolutely needs to be protected. It is a jewel of Sweetwater County, but it feels to me like alternative D would have done that. It wasn't perfect. It still needed some tweaks, but alternative B takes that line we drew around Little Mountain and expanded it to take up most of Sweetwater County. The limits on new right-of-ways in alternative B would pretty much end new industrial development in Sweetwater County. It threatens huge projects that are already in the pipeline and has the potential to cost Sweetwater County billions and billions in investment. And that's the money that keeps our economy churning. It's what's creating all the jobs that we have and the jobs that create the wealth that we can use to provide conservation. B is a step too far. D needs work, but we really need to be aware of what the differences between those options. And and get the public involved.
Yeah, and on that note, I appreciate that, Commissioner Richards, those sentiments I think that you've expressed, I think are shared by many. I think it's very important to note that public engagement process and that September 27th meeting from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock at the Rock Springs BLM field office. I think that's very important that folks turn out for that and make their voice heard and make it known that, we live here. We also understand the challenges of striking a balance. That it's not an easy challenge, but it's a challenge that we need to come together. And I think for me, that's what maybe has some disheartening to this, is that we have a Wyoming way of bringing people with differences to the table and figuring out and talking them out and coming to a conclusion together through compromise and understanding. And this is kind of done differently. And I think it's our opportunity to part of the process to be involved and be engaged.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's been 15 years with a lot of people at the table, and they went with the plan with the alternative that did not take any of that into consideration. And I think that's very telling.
Yeah, and I think multi-use is what we're all about here in Sweetwater, and certainly we're an extraction state, we're an extraction county. And, at first glance, I agree with Commissioner Richards on a step too far. And I think everyone would probably agree up here that, Commissioner Johnson was correct in his, gem of Sweetwater County and the greater Little Mountain area. But I think this is kind of odd to spend all of these years working towards something collaboratively to then just roll out an option that was never really on the forefront, so to speak. So we've got some work to do. We've got some more education to dive into this, but we will do just that and be sure that we represent the people's best interest while also trying to protect Sweetwater County and fight back if needed. So thanks again for coming over this morning. Is there any other?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I
Commissioner
could,
Slaughter?
Josh, just to echo the sentiments, I too, believe that we need to see protection for that area. I was somewhat disappointed when I saw some of the news articles that came out stating that you had stated that you were in favor of what had taken place and that the county commission had been. Obviously, some of that could have been misinterpreted because it was a prior commission. Being a new commissioner and seeing it stated that we were in favor of that was somewhat disconcerting, especially seeing that, in this plan, they have set aside 1,600,000 acres in alternative B versus the 250,000 in alternative D that were proposed as areas of critical environmental concern. So, I think that, we are certainly on board with you and the coalition to preserve Little Mountain. What I'd like to see, if we could, is to get you to come before this new commission and talk with us about what is going on out there. If it's sometime in the near future, you could do that. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you think that would be a good idea, but I'd love to have you come and talk with this commission so that we have a more full understanding of what's going on there. I started last night trying to read through the 1,350 pages of this plan. It's pretty dry, and I need my attorney sitting next to me as I'm reading through a lot of this to understand, or maybe you to be next to me to understand it. But I once again, applaud your efforts and what you've done. You've done a great job here in this area, but I think it's important that we're all on the same page as we move forward, working towards this plan.
Yeah, Commissioner Slaughter, I appreciate that. I think it would be very beneficial if we could have some time set aside as a coalition to be able to present to you how we got to alternative D. I mean, again, that was a very long process. It involved a lot of stakeholders. And I think it would be to your benefit as well as we move forward in the comment period to be able to weigh in of how those determinations were made by the coalition and the support that it had, which does reflect, Commissioner Slaughter, a previous, in fact, 2 county commissioner administrations that exceed some of you that are on here. In fact, most of you. But yeah, I think that would be very valuable. So
Thank you.
I would appreciate that opportunity. We'd be happy to meet that demand, being mindful that it is hunting season.
The timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know Senator Kolb reached out to me over the weekend regarding this. He's sitting on a committee at the Senate level that's looking to, help out where they can. And so
Right.
the attempt was, where we as a board stand. And I just kind of explained that we've got some work to do. We've got some homework to do before we come out and kind of take a position, because we don't just want to rush through it. But it is a little bit odd to me too, that they're only having one meeting, before this 90-day, comment period. So I find it a little bit ironic that it takes, 15 years to develop something and then give 90 days for everyone to kind of, I guess, hurry up and dig through the details. So it seems like that's probably some strategy there as well. But I think we'd be very interested in what Commissioner Slaughter's suggested, and we'll plan on reaching out once we kind of get through this.
Okay, no, that sounds like a great idea. Chairman West, there are 2 additional meetings. Neither one of those are in Sweetwater County.
Right.
They do have another one in Big Piney as well as in Lyman. But yes, I agree with the bulk of this field office being based in Sweetwater County to have one meeting, and the timing of that meeting,
Yeah.
you read between the lines.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions, commissioners?
Chairman,
Commissioner Jones.
just to kind of add on a little bit. I get frustrated with these processes myself. I've dealt with them in a variety of different capacities before this, and it's always shocking, but not surprising when this is the path that's taken. For example, the comment period started about 2 weeks before the notification was published. So right off the bat, everybody's behind the ball. And then typically they do propose the most strict process or solution, if you want to call it that. I don't. So unfortunately, there's nothing surprising about this. Happens all the time. So I'm glad we have smart people wanting to read every single word on the 1,300 pages.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Chairman West, I'm curious as a cooperator to the process, what kind of engagement and involvement prior to the 1st of August or shortly there before the release of August 17th? Was there much in opportunity for?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
we had not met since the prior year was the last cooperator meeting. So they came out with the announcement before Kimberly, the field manager, was even allowed to meet with the cooperators to tell us what was going to happen. We were all under the assumption that alternative D would be the one chosen, but there was no discussion for a year.
We've had 0 here since we've been on board, but I know Commissioner Tillman's heavily involved with the process and attends, certainly any of those meetings, but there haven't been any. So
Yeah, I find that to be very alarming, especially knowing some of the other cooperators that sit at that table. And they've expressed similar sentiments as well, that this was on deaf ears. So,
yeah. Any other comments? Josh, thanks for coming over this morning. We
thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll be happy to try to accommodate your schedule and meet, just share more information.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
May I actually say one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I do appreciate Commissioner Richard, your involvement with the State Shooting Complex Task Force. And I look forward to working with you as this continues to move forward, and hopefully the entire Board of Commissioners. This is a huge opportunity for Wyoming. And I know there's going to be a lot of places around this state that are going to be putting a lot of effort into vying for having this complex in their backyard. But I think there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of details to be worked out, but I just am very, very elated to know that you've tasked one member to be intimately involved in this process, because it's going to be a ride. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Josh, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your willingness to work on that task force. I know Sweetwater County wants it. We're gonna be patient and see what the state task force determines their needs are. 'Cause
right.
until we know those needs, we can't even know if we can fulfill those needs. But I plan on being at every one of those meetings with you and keeping an eye on the process and doing what we can to see if Sweetwater County is a good fit for that project.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
I just want to say congratulations for being named to the BLM's Resource Advisory Council. We have our first orientation meeting tomorrow.
Is
we
that a
don't-
congratulations?
You need to be on another committee, and here's our chance. They don't ask us to serve until after they've made all our decisions, of course. But that task force has not met for over 7 years and will meet October 18th and 19th in Casper. And Josh and myself and others, I think Craig Rude, there are about 8 or 9 of them on that committee, to give advice to the BLM. Mhm.
Mr. Chair, Mary, you go ahead and keep doing that stuff and I'll do the fun stuff like shooting sports.
That's no fair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. We are still under county resident comments and concerns. Is there anyone else in the audience or online that would like to address the governing body? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close county resident comments and concerns and move right along into tab A. Today on the consent agenda, we have 10 items. First being the approval of the August 15th, 2023 minutes, the approval of the county vouchers, warrants, and EALs, the approval of bonds, ratified draft comments on the BLM proposed rule for the right-of-way leasing and operations for renewable energy, ratify the CEQ response letter, ratify CLG comments on the proposed rule for new performance standards for greenhouse gas emissions from new, modified, and reconstructed fossil fuel fired electric generating units, a request to restaff a vacant position in the Road and Bridge Department, a request to restaff a vacant position in the county attorney's office, a request to restaff a vacant position in the detention center, and another request to restaff a vacant position in the sheriff's office. Commissioners, if you've had a chance to review the consent agenda items.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one correction. Item 5, A5, ratify CEQ response letter. Those are just informational points and hearings notices, but the response letter has not been completed yet. Or is not in that pack.
Okay.
So we don't have to ratify anything under A5. It's just information.
Okay. We will note that. Is there any other comments or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
move to approve the consent agenda minus A5.
do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Richards? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Moving right along, we are on to commissioner comments, and it looks like Commissioner Slaughter's up first.
Mr. Chairman, I will apologize before I get started because it will probably take me more than 5 minutes. It's been 3 weeks since we last met, and so it has been a very busy 3 weeks. On the 17th of August, I attended the CLG meeting in Lyman. Later that day, I attended the BLM release of the Rock Springs RMP. Later that afternoon, I participated in a conversation with representatives of Castle Rock Hospital District, the state of Wyoming EMS, and Daggett County to iron out some issues related to ambulance coverage in the Washam area. And then that night, I attended the open house for Project West. On the 18th, I attended the Green River Riverfest Festival. As always, I was very impressed with the talent level displayed by our local artists. I also enjoyed the Shrimp Fest and interacting with the other participants. On the 22nd, I participated in a phone call with other stakeholders and attorney Danielle Betancourt to review objections to be presented to the Ashley National Forest at their final objection hearing. On the 23rd, I sat as a member of the County Board of Equalization on tax protest hearings of 2 county residents with the rest of our commission. On the 24th, I flew the new Northern Mule Deer Migration Corridor with the Wyoming Wildlife Federation. Extremely valuable information presented that helped me better understand the mule deer migration. Even though I've spent countless hours in the area we flew, it was a totally different perspective from the air. Very much enjoyed the opportunity to do that. On the 28th, I traveled to Vernal with Commissioner Tolman and Eric Bingham to attend the Ashley National Forest final objection hearing. I was able to meet several leaders of local and federal government agencies and believe it will help with future projects to have made these acquaintances. On the 29th, I missed the Golden Hour Senior Center board meeting due to a failing memory. I just simply spaced that one out. I will make contact with their board and executive director to see what I missed at their meeting. On the 30th, I attended an events complex master planning meeting. I appreciate the communication that the events complex board and staff have with the commission. They seem to genuinely want to share their ideas and keep us informed. It will be interesting to see what comes of this endeavor. On the 31st, I had a morning phone call with Commissioner Jones to discuss the specific purpose tax and the Joint Powers Board established to oversee the actions related to the tax initiative. I met with Assessor Davis, Attorney De Leon, HR Director McLean, Public Works Director Legursky, and Treasurer Cowan. On the first, I addressed upcoming issues on the specific purpose tax and Joint Powers Board with a small working group that we have set up to work on that. Was Tax Counsel Ryan Jardine, JPB Working Group Principals, and Matt McBurnett of the City of Rock Springs. We're working very hard to get all of the information necessary to hold the bond sale in early October. This morning, I met with Allison Bocc on the possibility of her working with the Joint Powers Board on this initiative. Allison filled the bookkeeping role for the prior specific purpose tax Joint Powers Board, which was approved in November 2012, and could be an extremely beneficial addition to our team moving forward as we work towards that bond sale. I have got our Public Works report, which was submitted by Public Works Director Legursky. I will read it into the record. Public Works Department, September 5th, 2023. The Buildings Department, we have started inspecting all of the RTUs so that we can make sure they are ready for the winter season. The LED lighting project is going well with the Green River Courthouse being completed last week. The contractor will start on the replacement of the lights within the detention center at the end of this week. Road and Bridge, we have finally caught up on most of the cleanup from the storms that hit various parts of Sweetwater County in August. The extra moisture, when it hasn't been running over the culverts, has been great because it helps with compaction and road grading operations. Most of the county roads have benefited from this moisture, and crews have been able to fix the roadways without hauling too much water, which slows the process down. Mowing operations have been slow going because of all the moisture. They will be done mowing at the end of October. Crews are starting to replace damaged signs and delineators so that they're ready for winter weather driving. Crews help remove the outdated playground equipment from Pioneer Trails Park and also help complete the Eagle Scout fire pit. Unfortunately, it's that time of year where we start to bring in all of the plow trucks, V plows, and dozer plows and go through them so they're ready to roll when the snow starts falling. Engineering, the Lagoon Road project is proceeding well. The project should be 90% complete by the end of this week if the last concrete pour stays on schedule. The fiscal 23 overlay project is complete except for the punch list items. S&L Industrial has been working on the 2023 paint striping project. However, it has been slow work because of the afternoon rains. We had our kickoff meeting for the County Road number 1 McKinnon Road study. The engineering firm will be doing geotechnical exploration coupled with ground penetrating radar to get a good cross section of the underlying roadway materials. This work will be completed this week. The first draft report will be turned over to Sweetwater County around the first week of October. We had our pre-proposal meeting for the design and construction management of a project on County Road number 15, 9 Mile Road, and County Road number 23 North, Wamsutter Crooks Gap Road. The RFPs are due September 15th, 2023. The RFPs will be graded by the selection committee and we will present the contract to the board in October. This project will allow us to fix the first mile of roadway on County Road 23 and also to reconstruct the first mile of roadway, County Road 15, and then apply a surface preservation treatment to the other 8 miles of paved roadway. In addition to that, Mr. Legursky included 6 photographs, which I thought were very interesting, specifically the culvert and what water can do to a culvert. I wish we had a copy of that we could show the audience, but that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and I would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, it was very interesting, the power of water and what it can do to a 72-inch culvert. So I had a chat with Mr. Legursky this morning about that. That was pretty enlightening. I don't think it was a failed memory either on missing your meeting. I think that's what happens when you're busy. So
maybe that's what it is.
Appreciate your hard work over the last 3 weeks. Looks like it was busy for you. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Slaughter? Thanks, Commissioner. Looks like Commissioner Toman's up next.
Okay. Thought it would be a quieter month, but that's not the case. August 16th, there was a scheduled BLM Sage Grouse Cooperator meeting for the that 9-state regional sage grouse plan, which was canceled, and they didn't bother to tell most of us as we tried to get on Zoom and couldn't do it. Then they came out with an announcement that sage grouse planning process now is going to not include the cooperators going forward. So I'm not sure what that means. August 17th, I attended the BLM Rock Springs office, the release. It was the last cooperator meeting before the release, but actually they released the plan for the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan field office a day ahead of schedule. So as we were meeting, the release had already been out. This is the first time we'd met since June of 2022 as cooperators who had been involved in the process for 12 years. We'll have more discussion on that later this morning, but the 90-day comment period ends November 16th, and the BLM has chosen alternative B, the conservation alternative, as the preferred BLM alternative, despite years of local input towards a balanced alternative D. So watch for the upcoming public meetings in Rock Springs, Lyman, and Big Piney. I have handouts here today. If anyone wants one, they're on the BLM website. And I think we need to fight to get another hearing in Sweetwater County and Green River if possible. It's not fair. They have one hearing in our county and the plan involves our county. So that's not quite right. August 17th, I attended the open house for Project West in Rock Springs at the Holiday Inn. That's an exciting new project. August 17th, I also met with some of the commissioners in the Industrial Siting Board, talking about that process and how that works with new developments in the county and the money that it can bring to the county. August 22nd, met at the Young at Heart, had a board meeting. The Early Learning Center is showing an income of almost $40,000 a month, which will now go into the coffers for the Young at Heart. So that is exciting news. August 23rd, we met with the Board of Equalization. We were the Board of Equalization to hear the 2 tax appeals. August 24th, I listened to a Fontenelle Working Group Zoom meeting. The good news is the 2-year DROIA, the Drought Response Action, has been suspended because the water levels were 235% of normal early this season. It ended up at 130% of normal. So we will not have to have additional releases out of Fontenelle or Flaming Gorge. So that was good news. August 26th, I attended a memorial tribute to Dave Westling at Expedition Island, longtime city employee who lost his battle with early onset Alzheimer's. He'll be missed, and his family send our sympathies, and they were longtime cow hands for our ranch. So Dave was a great hand. August 26th, Barb Van Meter and I attended the Forbes family farm. They have 4 community dinners at Sheep Creek at their ranch, and I would encourage people to attend it. It's very exciting to be able to go to I call it country culture dinner, utilizing all of the produce and meat from that little farm in that valley. So Forbes Family Farm, check it out on the website. August 28th, Ashley National Forest objection meeting with the cooperators in Vernal. Eric Bingham and Rob Slaughter and I attended that meeting, and contrary to what the BLM has done, they did a very thorough process of letting us respond and answer questions about our objections to their draft plan before it goes public. So congratulations to them and to my fellow members who attended that meeting. It was a great process. August 30th, attended the Sweetwater County Events Complex Master Planning Meeting. Watch for community surveys that will be coming out to allow people to provide input on what they want to see from the complex. September 3rd, I attended the Summers Homestead barbecue with my mother, recognizing new inductees into the Wyoming Cowboy Hall of Fame. My dad was inducted and Mom was in 2018. So that was a fun event to attend. Yesterday was Labor Day, and I want to say special thanks to all of our employees in the county for being such great workers, and we appreciate the jobs that you perform for the county. And I know as a commission, we will strive to always make sure that you receive competitive salaries, while we will work to ensure that those jobs are long lasting through the boom and bust cycles, hopefully through alternative B. We also celebrate Wyoming as a right-to-work state where you do not have to fear pressure to join a union and pay dues unless you willingly choose to do so. Upcoming, tomorrow morning, we have our quarterly federal partners meeting in the Castle Rock Room at 9 a.m. to get updates from all the federal agencies. At 9 o'clock, I have or 10 o'clock, I have an orientation with the Bureau of Land Management Resource Advisory Council, which Josh Corsi and I have been named to, as well as Craig Rude and others. The first meeting will be October 18th and 19th in Casper. The Colorado River Working Group, the new legislative group that has new appointees, will be meeting at Western Wyoming College in Rock Springs, I believe from 9 to 4 tomorrow also. So I will also try to catch part of that meeting. Mr. Chairman, I end my report.
Thanks, Commissioner. Busy few weeks for you as well, and congrats again on the Cowboy Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Any questions for Commissioner Toman? Hearing none, looks like Commissioner Richards, you're up next.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Immediately after our last meeting, I left for a week-long family vacation, so I did not attend last month's SEDC library or fair board meetings, though I do have quite a bit of information to share with you about each of them. The SEDC has been busy. Website updates are currently underway, and Kayla and Jessica Evans with Royal Flush Advertising are currently working on the rebuild. The goal is to have it fully transitioned to the new site by the end of September. The new business retention and expansion program is up and running with the new software Executive Pulse, and Kayla will be surveying businesses beginning this month. Kayla and Eric have begun setting meetings to discuss needs of the incoming industrial projects in Sweetwater County. They have also met with WWCC President Dr. Kim Dale to help with future workforce training programs. Kayla, Eric, and Mark Cowan will be attending the Wyoming Working Together Conference September 20th through 22nd in Lander. This conference is held jointly with the Wyoming Economic Development Association, Wyoming State Chamber of Commerce, and Wyoming Main Street Program. And the SEDC has organized a Southwest Wyoming Industry Project panel on October 5th, where representatives from local industries, including representatives of some of these huge projects that are on their way, will be there to provide information and answer questions. More information on that will be coming soon, and I encourage the public to be on the lookout for that and to attend. Another note with SEDC and land use planning, today is Director Eric Bingham's birthday, so I'd like to wish him a happy birthday. Library Board held their meeting on the 21st, where they approved and signed the budget agreement that we authorized at our July 18th meeting. I'd like to thank Library Director Lindsay Travis, Library Board Chairman Megan Jensen, Deputy County Attorney John DeLeon, and Treasurer Mark Cowan for the efforts they all made to work out the details on that agreement. Regarding the Fair Board, they have contracted with KO Architects and Fairgrounds Planners to help them develop a strategic master plan for the events complex. KO's experience includes multi-purpose facilities, conference centers, expo halls, arenas, rodeos, livestock barns, grandstands, tracks, motorsports, equine facilities, entertainment venues, and concert facilities. So they have a lot of experience in facilities like ours. The idea is to create a dynamic long-term planning document that provides a conceptual layout to guide future growth and development. And the goal is that the master plan will help everyone, and by everyone, I mean us, the Fair Board, the events complex staff, as well as the whole community, to visualize current facility improvements and future projects. The events complex has a strong foundation, and they help to repurpose some of the property and improve and expand the existing facilities, all while planning for the future and responding to the needs of the community. Process started last week with half a dozen meetings with various stakeholder groups to get as much feedback as possible about how different groups view where our events complex is now and where they would like to see it in the future. I participated in the meeting on the night of the 30th with many of you and staff and the Fair Board and the commission, and then went back on the following night on the 31st for a team wrap-up meeting with board members and staff. One of the things that we all realized in the process is that there's a real lack of understanding in the community about how vital the events complex is to all of us as a recreational hub, as an economic driver, and more. This plan should really help with that. And I want to thank my fellow commissioners for their involvement. I look forward to being part of the process as it moves forward. On the morning of the 30th, I also attended the yearly THIRA with Sweetwater County Emergency Management and Wyoming Homeland Security. For those of you that love acronyms, THIRA is the Threat and Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. It's an important step in both planning for possible threats and hazards in the community and identifying gaps and capabilities by updating our previous information. And it's also a vital part of the process to secure grant funding for the community needs to armor themselves against future threats. It was very interesting and educational, and I appreciated working with such a diverse group of people dedicated to the health and safety of Sweetwater County and its people. Of course, I also attended the Board of Equalization hearings with all of you on the 23rd, and while learning the details of Assessor Davis's job and the ins and outs of mass appraisal was interesting and educational the first time, I'm glad we won't have to do that again for at least another year, if ever. Next week on the 11th, I'll attend a SCORC motorized subcommittee meeting, and then on the 12th, I'll attend. Where was I?
Sport meeting. Yep.
Next week on the 11th, I'll attend a SCORC's motorized subcommittee meeting. And then on the 12th, I'll attend a SCORC stakeholder meeting at 5 p.m. at the C Street Library. I'd invite any of you to come by and see what we do and what we're working on. On the 13th, I'll attend the monthly Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, followed by an update from Frontier Carbon. On the 14th, I have an SEDC advisory board meeting. And then on the 18th, I will be visiting with the library board, which brings me full circle back here for our meeting on the 19th. There's a lot going on in Sweetwater County. We've some exciting and challenging times ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these great projects come to fruition. On another but related note, I know all of you are aware of the implications of the BLM's proposed resource management plan. We'll be talking about that later today. But I want to speak directly to the public and remind them how important it is for them to make themselves aware of how this proposed plan, specifically Alternative B, will affect them. This proposed plan has the very real possibility of destroying Sweetwater County's economy. We keep talking about all the industrial projects that have the ability to deliver huge economic benefits to our community. But this RMP has the very real potential of putting an end to almost every one of those projects, including many more that we may never even know about if this plan passes in its current form. I can't emphasize enough how massive this negative impact, economic impact to this community could be. And I encourage everyone, take this seriously. Get informed, get educated, and get involved. Attend those meetings that the BLM is holding. As Commissioner Toman said, encourage the BLM to provide more meetings in Sweetwater County. This is extremely important, and I won't be able to attend that 27th meeting because they scheduled those meetings right during Waco, where county officers are going to be in Casper getting training. And on the 27th, I will be at the State Shooting Sports Complex meeting in Riverton. So I'm going to depend on a lot on you guys to be there, making your voices heard. I think that's all I have for you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good report. Yeah, I will. In fact, I will definitely be there on the 27th, as I elected not to go to Waco because I was going to take that public officer training here, but then Board of Equalization stacked up and ruined that. So everything's falling.
I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to 7 hours of the government telling me how to govern.
It's your Wyoming State Legislature. I've already done it once. I'm going to do it again.
Any comments or questions for Commissioner Richards?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Slaughter.
Commissioner Richards brought up the acronyms. And in speaking of our resource management plan and looking at it last night, I believe volume 1 starts with 7.5 pages of acronyms. So that's what you can look forward to when you're reading that document.
As if it's not confusing enough.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good report. Looks like Commissioner Jones, you're up next.
Thank you. On August 17th, I attended the public information meeting for Project West. It was a great presentation. They had very informative boards, people there to answer questions. I learned a lot more about the process and how it all works, so I thought it was a great evening. Also on the evening of the 17th, I attended the museum board meeting. Good to get introduced to everyone there, start to get a feel for the museum. One of the biggest topics, at least in my mind, was a discussion about moving money to different lending institutions in order to receive better rates of return on the investments. Excuse me. Also discussed with busy summer programs, working with Treasurer Cowan to change the licensing area review of booths at the International Day and Riverfest. The upcoming opening of the Flaming Gorge Dam exhibit, which will be on September 27th. And the Teacher's Guide and Student Textbooks in conjunction with School District number 2. And they're hopeful that School District number 1 will also join in the near future. On August 19th, I volunteered for the Sweetwater Snowpokes Fun Run in the Upper Green. I had a great day with over 300 people up there. I didn't ever hear the number of side-by-sides that were up there, but they went on for miles. So everybody had a great time. On the 20th, also went with the Sweetwater Snowpokes to complete maintenance on the Blind Bowl Safety Shelter. Cut and stacked firewood. We washed and stained the outside of both the outhouse and the safety shelter, cleaned the inside and stocked with supplies, mowed the grass around the shelter. We also had help from Forrest Kaminga. I'd like to thank him. He is Wyoming State Trails Program Manager. So he came from Lander to help out, which is always a good partnership. We do have one more safety shelter on Union Pass to prepare for the winter, though. Of course, we were all here for the full day on the 23rd for the Board of Equalization hearings. Was very educational in the end, I think, for myself anyway. On the 24th, I attended Joint Powers Telecom Board. Update was given on the Lagoon Road project. The power poles are in place and waiting on transformers. There was talk of bonding requirements for the members, as well as the 8-hour class that Commissioner Richards mentioned. I think everybody's really excited to participate in that. There's also discussion and explanation given regarding the Union Wireless secondary route for the county and cities. That was probably more for my benefit than anybody else's, being new, but David Halter then gave me an in-depth tour of the 911 call center and all the electronics required to make everything work there. Pretty impressive. Later that night, I attended the Rock Springs Tigers football game and watched an impressive win over NC. So that was a good night. On August 26th, attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County Foundation Casino Night fundraiser. Tiffany, you did an awesome job. So it was a great night. Everybody had a lot of fun, just smiles and laughs all night long. So good job on that. On the 28th, I attended the Hospital Finance Committee meeting. Some of the highlights were a net gain of about $237,000 for the month of July. Discussed contracted FTEs, full-time employees. So that's the contracted FTEs is on a downward trend. So the efforts to hire and retain people are paying off there. That's good news. Also discussed were collections on denied claims and a self-pay plan for improvement. There's also talk of the application to become critical access was received by the state. And since that is complete, the next step is in the hands of the state. So we'll continue conversations with the board president on a regular basis, as I have been doing, or as necessary. Had several conversations with a variety of people regarding our need to fill the open seat on the Board of Trustees. We'll continue to do so in order to make sure we have the best choice and selection so we can fill that one together. On August 29th, I had a phone conversation with Forrest Kaminga. Again, he's the manager of the Wyoming State Trails Program regarding the upcoming ATV, UTV, Jeep, motorcycle trail program started by SWAT, or Southwest Off-Road Trails. Forrest met with YDOT to review the final draft of rules and regulations. So that's moving along. They are both in agreement. So now it goes for their public comment period, and then there will be a MOU put in place so counties, towns can start enrolling roads and crossings. We probably will be having some sort of a presentation or presentations, I should say, in the future regarding the topic of trails. I've had conversations with both Forrest and also Mark Tesoro with SWAT. They both mentioned possible presentations. They've been before the commission and the cities before, but since there's new faces, they're thinking of coming back, which I think would be good. Morning, August 30th, I also attended the Thyra training. Was very interesting, very educational. We went through 4 different hypothetical situations to try and find out what some of our gaps could be and how to address them. Late in the afternoon on the 30th, I met with Karen Kelly from Juvenile Probation so I could get a feel for being her liaison. We had a fairly lengthy conversation. She filled me in on annual crime reports and staffing. We discussed the different types of offenses and reasons for situations and offenses. It was very interesting conversation. I was glad to have it. On the evening of August 30th, attended the master planning meeting for the Sweetwater Events Complex. As with most of us, I went on the full tour first, which I hadn't done for several years. So I wanted to start with that. And then, of course, we discussed the pros and cons of the current offerings and what we'd like to see in the future. Again, I just wanted to mention the opening for the Board of Trustees from Memorial Hospital, Sweetwater County. We do need people to apply for that. And I would like to have several people to pick from if possible. So that concludes my report.
Thanks, Commissioner. Busy few weeks for you as well. Any comments or questions for Commissioner Jones?
I'm glad he's stepping right up to the plate and getting busy.
I didn't want you to be mad at me, so I figured I better get after it.
Wise man, got to keep her
I'd
happy.
never
over
be
here.
mad at you. Don't worry.
Looks like I'm last here, so I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. It has been busy for all of us with that 3-week stint. But on the 17th of August, Commissioner Toman and Land Use Director Eric Bingham and I met with staff from the Industrial Siting Council. Discussion was in reference to the upcoming process for Project West. They offered lots of tips and pointers on how to be best prepared when going before the council for impact assistance funding and the benefits of establishing an MOU between all the different entities within the county to help streamline the process. I appreciate them reaching out and willing to meet with us, and we'll look forward to assisting further as that process progresses. That same evening, I attended the open house for Project West in Rock Springs, as many of you did as well, and learned more on the intricate details of the process and the project as a whole. I'm pretty impressed with the amount of community outreach that the Project West team has displayed in wanting to be a good community partner. Touched on that a little bit when they presented at our last meeting, but I think it's admirable to see it as one of their main priorities. After that open house, I attended the monthly GOP meeting that evening and gave an update primarily about the Project West project while encouraging those in attendance to help spread the word about the importance of all of us trying to find good candidates to apply for the vacancies on the boards we appoint, as Commissioner Jones just spoke to. On the 23rd, I attended the 2 Board of Equalization hearings with you all and just wanted to compliment that process. It was, in fact, a lengthy all-day event, but a very educational one. So I appreciate staff's hard work and coordinating that successfully. On the morning of the 30th, I was unable to attend the Thyra group meeting as I had my District Board of Health monthly meeting that meets at 7 a.m. So I couldn't make that, but not a whole lot on their plate. The agreement between the district and the county was approved, and the board just fielded updates from staff who have been busy with back to school vaccines and scheduling COVID and flu vaccine clinics for the events complex, Golden Hour, Young at Heart, and Deer Trail Assisted Living. Total immunizations administered decreased from fiscal year 22 to 23, largely attributed to the decrease in COVID vaccine administration. They're predicting fiscal year 24 to be even less, but continue to monitor the different variants from the never-ending nightmare virus. The evening of the 30th, I was unable to attend the events complex master planning meeting because I had Southwest Counseling Mental Health Board monthly meeting. They began the meeting with a very lengthy executive session, which made for a little over a 4-hour meeting in total, getting home well past Commissioner Tolman's bedtime. You would have been proud. One of their new business items was in reference to their health insurance premiums, and staff gave a brief presentation suggesting a few options for the board to consider that would change the employer contribution amounts. But they also discussed potentially looking into other options for health insurance given the rise in cost. They do participate in the county's health insurance plan as a component unit. So I've been in contact with Gary McLean to help provide some information in this realm. The board tabled taking any action on it, and we'll discuss further at the end of this month. The agreement between them and us remains unsigned, but much of that was waiting on the attorneys to sort through and clarify some of the more statutorily based content. Their board has asked for us to provide some training on a lot of the information within the agreement regarding statutory requirements and understanding the role of a community service board. So I will try and help coordinate that for their next meeting and rely on staff to help with that process. They did have a board member resign, so we'll have another vacancy to fill on that board. So please help spread the word, as we have 2 vacancies between the hospital and Southwest that certainly play an incredibly crucial role within our community. I would like to thank Amy Galley for her 6 years of volunteer service to the Southwest Counseling Mental Health Board, where I believe she also chaired for 2 years. Very difficult boards, so thank you to her and wish her well. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on the public officer training that we briefly spoke about. I did have Gary send that out to the different component unit boards, which I think was copied to all of you on that to hopefully. We've had a lot of questions as to who that applies to, so I think that flow chart will help with that, but it's probably something we would want to discuss as a commission on who follows up with that. Things kind of get lost, and I would assume the boards or the organizations would ensure that their new members, take that training, but we probably want to include that. I know Commissioner Richards sent an email out about the requirement and on the application process, and it sounds like that is on there, but they have a year to take that, and if they don't, then I believe we have the power to remove them from those boards. So it's kind of it's a good thing. I think it's really good for, new board members who maybe have not had any past service and understanding the different requirements, but it's obviously going to be burdensome for everyone to keep up with and ensure that it's taken within that year process. So I think as time goes along, we'll learn more. I know right now you can't watch, a recorded option, but the question is, how many times are they going to offer the training? So I just wanted to put that on your forefront to maybe discuss with your different liaison duties. And with that, that's all I have, unless you all have any questions. Hearing not, nice work, commissioners. And we will continue to chip away today. That does move us right along to tab B under action and presentation items. Up first, we've got the declaration of September being Blood Cancer Awareness Month and Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I do believe we have Tiffany Marshall here today. Did you want to come to the podium before we read the declarations? Good morning.
I'm a little bit less.
And Teresa Richards, excuse me.
I brought you guys some pins because he doesn't like having.
I keep ordering chocolate, but no one's getting the hint.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are here today, a little less formal than what I'm usually here for. We all know September is a very, very busy month. There's a lot of amazing causes that get highlighted in September, but we're here for 2 that are pretty close and near and dear to our hearts. And that is Blood Cancer Awareness Month, which is leukemia, lymphoma. And I believe there's one more that I'm blanking on. And then also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And so I had a nice speech for you, and then I was like, not happening because I don't think I'm going to make it through it. So there's a lot of information in the declarations. One thing I just wanted to point out is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I mean, it really sucks that kids get cancer. Obviously, I think everyone agrees. But the lack of funding that's out there is really eye-opening. And I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think the number is 8 approved chemos for childhood cancer in the last 10, 20, 30 years, I believe. So it really just kind of shows that awareness needs to come out here a little bit more than what it is. And nobody really wants to talk about it because it's really sad and really crappy. But just to give you guys a little glimpse into that. So when we were battling infant leukemia for my son, in his first round of chemo, he had 10 different chemo drugs. So when you kind of put that into perspective, that he went through 10 in a 30-day period, but only 8 have been approved in the last who knows how long. It really shows that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Also, I don't think that childhood cancer awareness is very big in our community, but it was crazy. One time, I think it was July of 2021, when we were in the pod A in primary children's, that whole pod was filled with Rock Springs kids. It was pretty eye-opening. 2 leukemias, a brain tumor, and something else that I didn't know. So it's kind of hard to talk about. It's not fun to talk about, but I think getting this awareness out there is really important and really key. And maybe someday we'll be able to bring some resources to our community, because right now there's just not for childhood cancer. And on one hand, it's kind of nice that there's not, because that means that there isn't as big a need to have it here. But at the same time, it is also terrible for the patients and the families that have to travel to get that support down in either Salt Lake or Denver. So with that, I'm going to leave it at that before I completely run out the door with those 2 declarations.
Thanks, Tiffany. We appreciate that. Teresa, do you have anything you wanted to? No.
Just thank you for making the time and putting it on the schedule. This is really important, and I wish there was more awareness. I did not realize the prevalence of blood cancer. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys coming over here. We will go ahead and read these declarations unless anyone has any comments prior to.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
this is very personal to me. These 2 ladies represent two sides of what cancer does, and that's affects people and affects their caretakers. It's devastating to families. And I hope everybody sees this and reads these resolutions and takes away from it that there is hope. May not be tomorrow, but there's cures in the future for these things. But we're not going to get there without being aware of it and pursuing them. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, it is difficult, and I think that's why a lot of people avoid it, but that's kind of counterintuitive to the importance behind making people aware. So anything we can do to help support, we are all on board, and I think I can speak on behalf of all of us in that regard. So we will go ahead and declare, the first one is the Blood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas an estimated 1,297,027 people in the United States are either living with or in remission for leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma. And whereas new cases of leukemia, like lymphoma and myeloma, are expected to account for 9.4% of the estimated 1,958,310 new cancer cases that will be diagnosed in the U.S. in 2023. And whereas approximately every 3 minutes, one person in the U.S. is diagnosed with leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma. And whereas an estimated combined total of 184,720 people in the U.S. are expected to be diagnosed with leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma in 2023. And whereas approximately every 9 minutes, someone in the U.S. dies from a blood cancer. And whereas leukemias are the most common cancers in children and account for approximately 28% of all childhood cancers. And whereas nonprofit organizations such as the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society are dedicated to curing leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma through funding blood cancer research and providing education and patient services. Whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently dedicating their expertise to treat and cure blood cancers. And whereas Sweetwater County is committed to the eradication of blood cancers and supports the treatment of its citizens that suffer from them. Now, therefore, we, as the Sweetwater County, has Blood Cancer Awareness Month, and we encourage all to observe Blood Cancer Awareness Month and support this cause that so deeply impacts families in our communities as well as those across the country.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I move to approve the resolution declaring September as Blood Cancer Awareness Month.
We do have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
We got a second by Commissioner Tillman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next is the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas childhood cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children, and whereas 1 in 285 children in the United States will be diagnosed by their 20th birthday, and whereas 46 children per day where 16,790 children per year are diagnosed with cancer in the US. And whereas the average age of diagnosis is 6 years old. And whereas 80% of childhood cancer patients are diagnosed late and with metastatic disease. And whereas on average, there's been 0.6% increase in incidence per year since the mid-1970s, resulting in an overall incidence increase of 24% over the last 40 years. And whereas 2/3 of childhood cancer patients will have chronic health conditions as a result of their treatment toxicity, with 1/4 being classified as severe to life-threatening. And whereas approximately 1/2 of childhood cancer families rate the associated financial toxicity due to out-of-pocket expenses as considerable to severe. And whereas in the last 30 years, only 6 new drugs have been approved by the FDA to specifically treat childhood cancer. And whereas the National Cancer Institute recognizes the unique research needs of childhood cancer and the associated need for increased funding to carry this out. Whereas hundreds of nonprofit organizations at the local and national level, including the American Childhood Cancer Organization, are helping children with cancer and their families cope through educational, emotional, and financial support. And whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently dedicating their expertise to treat and cure children with cancer. And whereas too many children are affected by this deadly disease and more must be done to raise awareness and find a cure. Whereas Sweetwater County is committed to the eradication of childhood cancers and supports the treatment of its citizens that suffer from them. And now therefore we, as Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And we encourage all to observe Childhood Cancer Awareness Month and support this cause that so deeply impacts families in our communities, as well as those across the country.
Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I move to approve the resolution declaring September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
You have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thank you both for coming over today. Very difficult, but very important to recognize. And so our hearts are with you both.
Thank you. I promise next time I come, it'll be in, we'll smile and laugh a little bit more than today.
Mr. Chairman, should we do a picture of the paper? up
Be
front?
happy to, if you both are willing.
I think most of us know survivors or non-survivors of these kinds of cancers. I personally had a cousin and a very close childhood friend who didn't survive.
All right, let's do that. All right, two very special ladies in our community. We will move right along. To item 2 under tab B. We've got the bond underwriting for the specific purpose tax, and we've got Alan Matloss here with Stifel. And good morning, Alan. Thanks for coming over.
Good morning. Oops. I'm taller. So, Alan Matlows with Stifel. Good morning. We can use the presentation or not use it. It doesn't matter. I don't know if. No, I didn't. I'm not that organized. I have hard copies to hand out to the if you want a hard copy, but I'm not terribly exciting, but I feel like I have to bring something to the party. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job.
Thanks. It's in the packet, but we don't have a thumb drive on it. Why don't we? That might be beneficial if there's public watching to see, if you don't mind, Sally.
Yeah, so just while we're doing that, little irony, so the powers that be that regulate the financial industry have outlawed any external devices. So we cannot use external drive, external thumb drives, any of that stuff anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of kind of making sure that we're not doing, something they can't track.
Okay.
So yeah, so even if I had one, I couldn't bring one. So
We can do it. You just can't do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, you can do anything you want. I just can't do it. Luckily, this is a public meeting, so that's easy, but they don't want me, saving stuff and going somewhere with it. But before we get to the presentation, I'll just say that we've been working hard with the whole group to try to move the bond issue along, but I know that Commissioners West and Slaughter have been active in that effort. We're making good progress. So I think the plan is to get the funding part wrapped up in October. The taxes, has started in April, so we'll have our, if I do the math right, 4th month of collections soon, right? It's about the 10th of the month that the collections come in. So everything looks positive there. So I think we're making good progress, and everyone's been really helpful. So it's been appreciated.
Well, I know you played a big role in trying to help us, through some of these changes with Commissioner Shanefield
Sure.
resigning and
Sure.
kind of getting
No
everything
problem.
on track. So we appreciate you.
No problem. I'll make another comment since, we're waiting. So
Sure.
when I was here last in February of 2020, it was this way, right? If I remember correctly. So this is very fancy. Looks very nice, but I remember I walked in and I was all confused, but I remember it used to be this way.
Well, you can tell we're all, 6 feet apart. So that had something to do with that time frame.
It's something to do with it. That was like 2 weeks before the official, it was like the 20 something of February,
Okay.
2020. So.
At first, I didn't really like being this far from Commissioner Toman, but now she can't reach me. So it has its perks.
Have you noticed I haven't said anything?
All right. Looks like
Okay,
we got her up
this
there.
is great. This is helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sally.
So we're talking about the bonds for the 2023 specific purpose tax. There are 8 projects that were approved, and I'm going to go through the projects and how we're approaching that here in a second. So we have the list of all the folks that have been involved. So just to make sure that we're trying to make sure that we keep all the communities and the users of the funds up to date, but not overwhelm them with emails and documents. It gets be a little bit much after a while. So I think we're on the last email I saw, they have the next Joint Powers Board meeting on Monday the 11th. And hopefully at that meeting, we can make good progress. And then we're also hoping to have discussions with the rating agency on that next week as well. So there's the schedule. We had a call last Friday. Yes, it seems like a long time ago, but just Friday with Moody's. A couple things. So the goal is to get a rating on the bonds that gives you the lowest possible interest rate. When I worked on the previous financing for Carbon County a couple of years ago, we learned that the rating agencies had changed their criteria for how they rated bonds in Wyoming. Not a lot of bond issues in Wyoming, so they, kind of got around to it. So that's why we had a call with Moody's on Friday. I think we're in good shape there in terms of how they're going to look at it and how we think they should look at it. So that indicates a good rating outcome, means low cost for the borrowing. And that just gives you a schedule of all the steps that will be coming forward. Bond sale, October 11th is the plan right now. That's everything. When the rates get locked in, then we close 2 weeks later. So that's where we are there. So here are the projects, and the blue are the projects that are being funded with bonds. The green are cash funded, and then the town of Superior has requested a little bit of funding up front and then collecting the rest over time. One of the things that's interesting, I think, and I hope the most interesting, if anything is interesting with this presentation, on the next page is the cash flow projections. So when the discussions were had, over many months about what to place on the ballot, there was a big discussion about how many dollars, how many projects, requests came in for a lot more dollars than were placed on the ballot. These projects were the 8 that were selected. And there was a dollar amount of 83 million-ish that the voters approved. Right now, based on interest rates, because we were estimating what the interest rate would be, we would estimate on how quickly the tax would come in. So that means how quickly the bonds get paid off. We estimate that we only need, I'm going to look here, just under 80 million of tax to satisfy all those projects. So that'll be hopefully a savings for the taxpayers, not have to pay the full 83 million. And then that tax would go away, and then the county can decide about just other projects in the future. So based on this data and the estimate of, I'm going to pull it up here. Over the last 4 years, the average monthly revenue from 1 cent tax has been $1,379,000. We estimate this tax will collect all the money it needs in about 5 years. So in 2028, the tax should sunset at that time, and the bonds will be paid off. We estimate that the interest rate on the bonds today would be about 3.4%. So interest rates have gone up on the borrowing side, but they've also gone up on the earning side. So I'm sure you've seen in the presentation from the county treasurer that you're now earning money on your cash, where, when I was here in 2020, that was zero essentially. So, but the interest rates on the borrowing side haven't gone up as much. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon that you could borrow for 5 years at 3.4%, but earnings, on like a 1-year US Treasury is, 5.25 or something like that. So it's just, that's the benefit of being able to borrow on a tax exempt basis, where the interest paid on the bonds is not subject to federal income tax. The next page shows how the bonds are set up, because half the projects are bond funded and half the projects are cash funded. We estimate that the par amount of the bond issue is to be a little over $41 million. We will generate some premium on the bonds. That it means we will sell bonds with an interest rate higher than the yield. That's what investors want right now. And so that generates extra premium. That means you don't have to borrow as much, saves a couple dollars for the Joint Powers Board. We're going to contribute a little bit of the money that's been collected so far. And that generates about $40 million, a little over $40 million for projects. We have a debt service reserve fund, which is a requirement from investors to have essentially 10% of the money set aside that will earn interest at the bond yield. So it doesn't really cost anything, and it'll be used to pay off the last year's payment. And then there are expenses related to the issuance of the bonds. As I mentioned, 3.4% is the interest rate estimated today. And with total debt service on the $41 million of 47 million. So I think the last page I'll just mention, if you care, is just a couple of charts that show what's been happening to interest rates over the last few years. So obviously we all know that interest rates have gone up. Anyone that's looked at a CD at a bank or tried to get a mortgage knows that interest rates have gone up. But if you look at the bottom left corner of that 4-chart page, you can see that interest rates are kind of in the middle of the range for the last 20 years. So they are higher, but they're not as high as they had been at some point in time. And so it gives you some idea about where we are historically in terms of interest rates. One of the benefits to this bond issue for the Joint Powers Board is that the borrowing, as we mentioned, is only estimated to be 5 years. So you don't pay a lot of interest over 5 years because the bonds amortize so quickly. So even though the interest rate has gone up, that hasn't affected the cost as much because you're mostly paying principal back very quickly over a 5-year financing. So I think we're in really good shape. Oh, one thing I was going to mention is bond counsel for this transaction is a firm called Kutak Rock. They are in Denver, but they do a lot of work in Wyoming, and they have come to an agreement on a new structure for the bond issue. For those involved, I know Commissioner Slaughter was involved, but those involved with previous bond issues of this type, we were done with a series of leases where each individual community had to enter into a lease with the Joint Powers Board and a lease with the bank trustee, and it was a lot of work, and you had to kind of have multiple approvals. So this approach is a single bond issue based, just be paid back from the tax without the leases. And this made it a lot simpler. So we don't have to schedule all of those individual meetings to coordinate with the bonds, which was always tricky on the last few of these that I've done. So that's been helpful, and I think should be viewed positively by both the rating agency Moody's and investors as well. So, and I'd be happy to answer questions, talk more, talk less, whatever you prefer.
Well, thanks, Alan. We appreciate you coming up this way and taking the time to inform us. I know there was kind of some back and forth and confusion, and it felt like we were behind, and what's the plan moving forward and all that. And as I mentioned earlier, I think you've played a crucial role in helping keep us on task with that. So we certainly appreciate your work and your willingness to help us out on this.
Sure.
Is there any comments, questions, commissioners?
Well, I just have a question on the page with the 8 Town of Superior. Water and sewer, okay, the amount in the ballot question, the requested amount, the bonding, and then cash funding, but they're just gonna bond the 240,000, the other will come from the 1 cent, okay,
Yeah, I believe they need it for like engineering and design.
okay.
And they
Thank
just didn't have the cash in hand. So they do the design first and then pay the rest of it over time.
Okay,
So-
that makes sense.
I think that, some of these are just the preference of the local entity, and the others are whether they're ready to move ahead or not yet. So
Can any of them change their mind and come on later? No.
they can up until we sell the bonds.
Oh,
So once we sell the bonds, I mean, you could do it again, but that would be quite cumbersome. I think Green River has pretty much said they don't want to borrow money. And then I understand on the 2 wastewater projects, my understanding there is they're using I'm going to get it wrong, the state infrastructure funding,
okay.
and they're going to use this revenue to pay back part of that funding. So they don't need to do a separate funding because they're just using that as a cash flow to pay back that funding.
I just have one more question about Jamestown, Rio Vista. Rob, do you know, or anyone? I thought that they had come to the commission 2 years ago for planning funding. Are they working on their plan, or where are they because of the Loves issue? What's happening? Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, Jamestown did not participate in the last Joint Powers Board meeting, which we had. So we have not had discussions with them. My understanding is that they are not prepared at this point in time to move forward. They're looking at the potential resources that they have and are trying to develop a plan, a master plan to come up with how they're going to actually perform this project. So I would like to have conversations with their representation to see exactly where they are in this process. We will be meeting the Joint Powers Board as Mr. Matlos brought forth. We'll be meeting next Monday at 3:30 in the council chambers in Rock Springs. I hope that they will participate at that point. You can see that they are a part of they are one of the issuers here. So I would hope that they would send representation. If not, I will reach out to them and find out where they're at. But as I say, I would hope that they would initiate that.
Yeah, it looks like they should be requesting master planning funding up front, so they can get that project off the ground, but that's up to them and your board, I guess.
And Mr. Chairman, and we've had several discussions. We've got a small working group, myself, Matt McBurnett, Alan and Ryan Jardine have been working kind of behind the scenes on some of this. And it is acceptable for these smaller communities to apply for or to spend their money for their soft costs, such as that engineering and things of that nature, and then be reimbursed. So Ryan is working on a reimbursement agreement so that they can actually do that at this point in time and be reimbursed after the fact.
Okay.
I think it brings up a good point, though. I mean, both of those, Jamestown and North Sweetwater county sponsored projects. And so I believe the calls I attended to, there wasn't participation. There was from North Sweetwater, but there wasn't from Jamestown. So we need to make sure that they get on board as a county sponsorship to be involved with the process. I don't think that certainly should fall on your shoulders.
I will reach out this week, Mr. Chairman, to them, let them know about the meeting and that we would like to have their participation on Monday.
I'm surprised Loves has not been encouraging them.
Lighting a fire underneath of them.
Any other comments or questions on the process, commissioners? Well, it doesn't look like that. That was a long trip to come out this way, but
Okay, anytime I can visit people in person now, too many Zoom calls.
yeah. Well, we appreciate it. It looks like everything's on track and we look forward to
Yeah,
making it happen.
I
to
think
move
we're in
forward
great
with this.
shape and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Next up under tab B is item 3, which is the release of bond for the Lagoon subdivision. We do have land use director Eric Bingham here, as well as a happy birthday to him, I'm told. So good morning.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that.
Hope we don't have to sing.
Please don't. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Maybe we'll have Kayla do that.
Just cake. Yeah, there you go. Mr. Chairman, so we are finally at the finish line here of the Lagoon subdivision. So instead of being here and doing another extension of the subdivision improvements agreement, all the improvements have been put in. There was a lot of supply chain issues and then getting the proper engineered drawings to the west side water and sewer district. So I'm here today. Improvements are in. I had letters from both the city of Rock Springs and the water and sewer district approving those improvements. I asked today that the commissioners approve the release of bond for $564,385.86 and authorize chairman to sign a letter releasing that bond. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eric. Any comments or questions for Eric on this release, commissioners? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to full release of the bond held for financial assurance for subdivision improvements for the Lagoon subdivision, and it is complete now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have a motion to approve this request by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eric. Moving right along under tab B, item 4, we've got the approval of the fiscal year 24 annual compensation agreement for Tracy Meets, University of Wyoming Sweetwater County Extension Office Associate. With us this morning, we do have Bridger. I don't even know how to pronounce your name, your last name, Fuse?
Bates.
Bates, I would have never got that. The Associate Director and UW Extension, and Tracy Meets, the Office Associate. Good morning to you both.
You guys are running ahead of schedule.
We're doing okay, not too bad. Depends on the day.
Had to make good time to make. Yeah, so the annual compensation agreement, just to update you, the one for Marty Henry will not be required. Marty has transitioned into a new role within Extension. And so that agreement, we will be, we have a 10-day opportunity for someone to request a transfer to Sweetwater County, which they did not. So we're going to be opening that position here in the next week or so. Sometime down the road, we'll be coming back for an annual agreement once we get somebody hired, but that's why that one was not presented. And then the one for Tracy, there were I guess university employees did receive a raise, and so that's incorporated into that request. But other than that, I think there was no changes to the request. Yeah.
No, there was no changes. We just did have a budget mishap that happened, that my position wasn't fully funded. The raise wasn't, we only did a 3% raise, and then my fringe benefits weren't correctly put into that budget. So we are at a shortfall of $16,500 to fully fund that position.
So refresh my memory, because I felt, didn't we already approve this? Is that why you're coming back because of this additional change? Is that?
Additional change, yeah.
Additional change, and then I think yearly you require us to come in front of you as the commissioners and sign the yearly contracts.
Yeah.
And it's, so I don't think there will be an overall change to the budget this year. But going forward, there would be, because of it. The reason I say there won't be an overall change to the budget is there will be some salary savings for Marty's position for, there'll be a couple of months where until we get that position refilled. So
Mr. Chairman, so then we shouldn't need a budget amendment because you'll fall within the budget that we have approved for you.
yes,
Okay, even though you've had an increase in,
right. Even though we have an increase, but we wanted to bring that so you're aware of it. So
yeah,
next year when we're fully staffed again. So.
And we do have some moving expenses budgeted, which I don't know if that will take place as well this year if we find a new home or if we're still remaining at college.
well, thanks for all your hard work and carrying forth through the fair and everything. We appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a unique situation. It's odd to me that the university offers a pay increase and we're just forced to provide that.
So I can give you a little history of that. Originally, the administrative assistant position was a county position. So the county budgeted for it and paid that position. But there were some concerns at the time that there were the supervisor was a university employee, not a county employee. And so the county actually requested that the administrative assistants become university positions and that then they would fund it through the budget. So originally county funded, county position supervised by university. It was determined that it would be better to be university position supervised by university, but then it does change it so that that university position is subject to, you know, when the state grants salary adjustments, we can't, I mean,
then it just has to happen essentially, so. I mean,
But
I
we're
don't know.
lucky the 3% matched our 3%. Otherwise, it could have been conflicting.
Right, and well, so we do have instances where there are. This has been more rare over the last 10 years because the university hadn't given raises for about 10 years. So there were lots of instances where counties were disappointed that they couldn't give their county employee that was now a university employee a raise. And in this situation, university gave a raise. So it does complicate things. We're open to however the counties like, prefer. And it's still handled in multiple, I mean, we have lots of administrative assistants that are county employees, lots that are university. It really depends on. So that's a little bit of a history anyway. I know it doesn't uncomplicate the situation, but a little bit of a.
Well, like the airport, they have a different, they did more than 3%. I mean, and they're one of our funding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides because, if you go 10 years without a raise, certainly you would think that, you'd want to help in that realm. But the flip side is, what happens if they come back and it's, 10, 15% raise and you're on the hook.
Right.
It's kind of odd that there isn't a collaboration about that of some sort.
Yeah, and we have, we would apologize also. So the university didn't finalize these raises until after county budgets were approved this time. We've requested that we can get more notice so that we can work with you as commissioners to give you better warning as when that's coming, but the university this go around, like I said, we didn't get final raises and information until the end of July.
I have a bit of a concern too. If the university said they don't have money, but yet they continued the contract for someone who's not serving in the county. So where'd they get that money? So I'm just putting it out there. You don't have to answer it.
Well,
I know it's not coming out of Sweetwater County, so it's fine.
no, it's not coming out of Sweetwater County. We have some salary savings in other positions we're trying to fill that are covering that position temporarily, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Slaughter.
Bridger, with respect to that, in your original request for the fiscal year, you requested $99,610.99.
Right.
In your synopsis of how that money would be spent, you had 4 different areas, one for a 4-H youth coordinator and county coordinator, that was $33,000. One for sensible nutrition program coordinator, which was about $4,500, a part-time horticulture educator of $21,000, and the administrative assistant was $40,969.98. So I'm assuming that Ms. Meets is filling the position of the administrative assistant.
Yep.
And so her salary is the $51,898, which we have seen,
Right.
which is really about $11,000 more than what we saw in the request that we had this year. In the statement, it states that there would be an additional $16,000 that would be needed to fund the position. So those numbers don't add up. I'm missing that. But more importantly, those other positions, obviously, as you say, Ms. Henry's position will not be filled and we'll be able to recoup some money through that. Are the other positions or any of the other positions filled, or what are you planning with respect to the payment of the amounts that were intended at that point?
Yeah, the other positions are still in place and I don't think they have changed. So. And then. The only other difference just to be noted is that the salary for Marty's position is only representing half the salary. So the university is paying the other half. And so that's why there's some differences there between like the 4-H educator and the administrative position is that's you're covering half of her salary and we're covering the remainder of the salary and the benefits. So In terms of the numbers, I'll sit down with Tracy and make sure where we're at there. Marty was the one who prepared that initial budget. I didn't look at it. I'm coming in after that, so I'll make sure. So that may be why the numbers aren't aligning exactly, but I'll work with Tracy to make sure that.
Yeah, I mean, that demonstrates about a 26% increase, which I believe is where Commissioner Slaughter was raising his question.
Yeah, UW gave me 11% raise this year. And then the other part is my fringe benefits were taken out of the budget. So we only budgeted 35,402. And so when I spoke to Ann at UW, that she's the office administrator there, she said that we budget 51% for fringe benefits. So that it was just an incorrect budgeting amount done when we turned in our budget for the fiscal year 2024. It was just an error.
So it wasn't 3%, it was 11%.
It was 11% they gave.
Yeah, the university gave all staff, so staff at the university were significantly compressed behind market.
So what was the 3% you were talking about?
The 3% was the proposed raise. What the university did was give a flat rate for any staff making below X amount. There was a flat amount that was given in addition to the 3%. Because they were so far behind market.
Do you think you need to go check these figures and come back at the next
Well, I
meeting
think it's-
to match the,
so,
make sure they match?
Given
the
what
budget?
Tracy said, I think that's right. I think the original budget just didn't have the
Additional.
benefits included.
Yeah, it was an incorrect amount. And then I did include in that email that was sent between the county attorney and I think Commissioner Tolman and Commissioner Richards was on that email last week. I did a breakdown of what my salary is and then what they're estimating the fringe benefits to be. So the base salary is the 34,392 and they're estimating 17,508, 506 for the fringe benefits.
Right.
Mr. De Leon, do you think all this tracks okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's presenting it as it is.
Okay. I just don't want you to have to come again and correct it.
Oh, I know, I understand.
I've made some good notes, so the future educator knows proper way to make sure that we're getting the salaries and benefits properly budgeted.
So help me out just because I'm trying to figure this relationship out, but the 4-H coordinator's position is shared. That's
Correct.
half county, half UW, but then all the other positions are county funded.
County, yeah, like
Okay,
I said, because they were originally county positions, just the county just asked us to move them to a university in position and they would
Okay.
fund them, so.
and so I didn't quite understand the 3%. That was the proposed. Can you go over that again?
So in early on in the spring, UW, we ask as administrators, what's the proposed rate increase? That was where the 3% came because that's where we thought it was going to fall. When the university went through and looked at the compression with staff, it was determined that there was an additional amount needed to get staff up to market par. And so that was that additional amount that was allotted besides there were essentially university has the standard, trying to think of the terminology. It's not the merit, it's the standard raise. That 3% was the cost of living. Yeah.
Okay.
The 3% was the cost of living. Then there was the adjustment based on compression. There was also potentially adjustment based on merit as well. So, but this represents the compression adjustment as well as the cost of living.
So they got 3% COLA and then you're saying they got another 8% for an adjustment for merit or the compression factor for a total raise of 11%.
Yep.
Okay, and so this 26%, 11 of that is obviously what we just spoke about, but the remaining amount is because the fringe benefits weren't included in the original budget request.
Correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could one more time, I'm still struggling here.
Commissioner.
I just want to clarify this. So what we're looking at is basically the administrative assistant position has gone from the budgeted amount of $40,900 to the $51,898. And where we'll be actually seeing the benefit or the decrease in funding will be from the county coordinator's position, which was funded at $33,000. And that's the reason that we won't have to do a budget amendment, you believe, is you won't expend as much in that county coordinator's position.
Correct.
Okay.
It will be vacant for at least 3 months, I would
Okay.
assume.
Thank you.
So are all of the other positions that Commissioner Slaughter spoke to, as far as the nutrition coordinator, horticulture educator?
Yeah, the horticulture educator that's Amanda.
I know you said they're filled, but as far as this
So
fringe benefit that was left off for the administrative
it's
assistant.
correctly, it's in there, right?
But we don't pay their full salary. Do they get other income? Those two other positions?
The, well, no, you pay, Amanda is a part-time employee,
Okay.
so there's not, the benefits aren't the same as a full-time employee. So you pay, you pay 100% of that horticulture position.
Okay, so the nutrition coordinator is full-time? No, that's not,
Full-time, and it's
obviously.
a grant funded.
Okay.
position.
But UW pays the majority of that salary.
Any other comments,
Sorry for the
questions? Well, I just, I like to have a good background as to
Yep.
how this has transpired so that we can speak to it. Any other confusion or comments? Commissioners?
Well, the public, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. Appreciate what Ms. Meets has done, and they're excited for you to get a new coordinator.
Tracy helped us out a lot, especially getting to State Fair and getting that through, so they really appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards?
I'd move to approve the FY 24 compensation agreement for Tracy Meets and authorize the chairman to sign.
We do have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks for coming over. We appreciate all the information and keeping us in the loop, and we'll look forward to the new educator, but certainly appreciate everything you're doing, Tracy. So thanks very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I did
Toman.
ask Candy though about, there was a vacant trailer at the racetrack. They're going to put in a new building, but she said it wouldn't be big enough for what you needed.
There is another option that I've talked to someone about, Bridger, so if you get hold of me, we've got a building that might be an option.
Thank you both. All right, next under tab B is item 5. We've got the fiscal year 2024 human service agreements. We've got our county clerk office manager, Ms. Sally Shoemaker, presenting for us today, and turn it over to Sally.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm wearing 2 hats today. On behalf of County Clerk Cindy Lane, I am presenting to you today the authorization for human service agreements. The human service agreements have already been budgeted. These are the incoming agreements that have been signed by their respective boards or directors. And the 6 before you today are the Boys and Girls Club of Sweetwater County in the amount of $36,000, Climb Wyoming in the amount of $3,000, the Sweetwater Family Resource Center in the amount of $45,150, Volunteer Information and Referral Service in the amount of $104,500, Golden Hour Senior Citizen Center in the amount of $211,800, and the YWCA of Sweetwater County in the amount of $238,452 for a total amount of $638,902.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Thanks, Sally. Commissioner Tillman.
Climb Wyoming, they did get a community grant through Casino, I think for another 50,000, but that would have been under a separate contract, right?
Correct.
This was just be the county money. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Any other questions or comments on the fiscal year 24 human service agreements?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I'd move to approve the FY 2024 human service agreements as presented and authorize the chairman to sign related documents.
We have a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 human service agreements by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Slowing down for my minute taker. She's multitasking today.
Thank you. Okay, the second item that I have to present on behalf of County Clerk Cindy Lane is the engagement letter for Porter, Muirhead, Cornea, and Howard, known as PMCH. Cindy wanted me to share with you that there are some upcoming year-end closings that need to take place that the auditors cannot help with, and PMCH will be able to guide us through that process to make sure that it is done correctly after the mill levy is set. Also, they will be the firm who looks over the statements provided by our auditors and the actual final audit once that is set. They will look over the statements provided by our auditors and the actual final audit will sign off to make sure that that is correct. This needs to be done by somebody who has the credentials to make such decisions. So before you is the engagement letter for your consideration for Porter, Muirhead, Cornea, Howard, CPA firm.
Thank you, Sally.
You're welcome.
Cindy did send out an email to us all with some of that similar information in her absence. Is there any questions or comments on this request? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve with the Porter, Muirhead, Cornea, and Howard CPA engagement letter.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.
You're welcome.
Next up is item 7. We've got a request for extended courthouse hours for the Southwest Wyoming Industrial Development Panel. We've got Kayla McDonald, our Economic Development Specialist with the Sweetwater Economic Development Coalition with us here this morning. And good morning, Kayla.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I would like to ask for your approval to use this space and also extend the courthouse hours from 6 to about 8:30 on October 5th. SEDC is putting together a industry panel that will be comprised of Frontier Carbon, Carbon Capture, Pacific Soda, and Project West, as well as Terra Power. So if you guys are in favor of that and we can use the room and also live stream it on the channel, we would be very grateful for that opportunity. And that's basically my only ask for you today.
Well, thanks. That sounds like an exciting event. And of course, it's right in the heart of hunting season as well, but that's part of the
Yes,
job.
it is.
Any questions, commissioners, on this request? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the request for opening the courthouse from 6 to approximately 8:30 on October 5th for the actions requested by Kayla McDonald.
We do have a motion to approve this request by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Did I hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Kayla.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. That moves us right along to a much needed break.
Eric, I have a question. Can you bring that RMP after lunch? Can you bring that? Thank you.
We are about 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so we will resume at 11:10 for the ratification of the vehicle bid awards. We'll go on about a 15-minute break.
Depends if you can't see them, but there's only 4 of them. They should be fat. They're eating grain every day now. They're off the ground that we missed. Yeah. Nervous or what?
No. No. I was gonna say something smart, but I'll refrain. All right, we will call this meeting back to order. Where we left off was the item 9 under tab B, which is the ratification of the vehicle bid awards. We've got our purchasing director, Marty Dernovich, with us here this morning, and good morning, Marty.
Morning, commissioners. As you know, several commission meetings back, just due to the supply chain issue, kind of a little recap for Commissioner Jones's benefit. The board had allowed me to open bids and award, and then bring it to the next commission meeting for ratification. So that's kind of where we're at today. As you guys all got the email when we did open the bids, and it's also in your packet. There was 4 bids. Bid number 2301 FD is 2 pickups with plows on them for the facilities department. We awarded the bid to Fremont Motor Chevrolet out of Riverton for a unit cost of $60,195.50 for a total of $120,391. It came in under what we had budgeted for at $159,750. So do you want to do them individually, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Any questions on the first bid award, commissioners?
I just have a question about Fremont Motors. So they must be separate owned entities, even though the Rock Springs Riverton, that didn't make sense.
Yeah, so they're separately, how do I want? Because me and Christina went through this with the debarment check. So they're owned by one big corporation, but they're individual located throughout the state, and there's several that are under this corporation.
It's amazing though that they would offer different bid amounts.
Yeah, and well, and each one of them is a different manufacturer that they sell. So like Riverton sells Chevrolet, Rock Springs sells Dodge and
Oh,
Jeep,
that makes sense.
Lander sells Ford and Toyota, and
Okay.
and so that's how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to ratify and formally award bid 2301 FD for the 2 3/4 ton crew cab short box pickups with plows to Fremont Chevrolet Riverton in the amount of $120,391.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
The next bid,
Unanimous.
the next bid is 2302 PR. It's for a 1-ton stake bed, flatbed, whatever you prefer to call it. It goes by both ways. Again, Fremont Motor Chevrolet out of Riverton received that bid at $69,628.90. Again, the budgeted amount was $100,000.
Questions on this award, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to ratify and formally award bid 23-02 PR for the 1 stake bed flatbed truck, again to Fremont Chevrolet out of Riverton, in the amount of $69,600.
She said 100,000.
No, that's how much it was budgeted for.
For $69,628.90.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion?
Who gets that truck?
That is going for the Parks Department.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
The next one is bid number 23-03 SD. This is a crew cab long box that will be converted into a dog truck for the sheriff's department. This one also went to Fremont Chevrolet out of Riverton in the amount of $49,440. And then, of course, the sheriff has 9 vehicles in his budgeted amount of 600,000. So we won't know the rest of that until we get the other bids in next week.
Questions on this bid award, commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to ratify and formally award bid 23-03 SD for a 3/4 ton crew cab long bed box truck to Fremont Chevrolet Riverton in the amount of $49,440.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
And the last bid that we awarded was bid number 23-04 ED. These are 2 half-ton crew cab trucks for the engineering department. That again also went to Fremont Chevrolet out of Riverton. Unit costs of $47,607, but for a total cost of $95,214. The budgeted amount was $133,125.
Thanks, Marty. Any questions on this final bid award, commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to ratify and formally award bid 23-04 ED for the 2 half-ton crew cab short box pickups to Fremont Chevrolet Riverton in the amount of $95,214. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Marty.
Commissioners.
Appreciate it. Moving right along, we've got item 10 today, which is the approval to use coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds for a duress button alarm system at the detention center. We've got Christina Marshall today, County Grants Manager, and Tim Knight, the County IT Director with us. And good morning to you both.
Good morning. Okay. We also have the sheriff, John Grossnickel.
See, you guys do that. They're not on the agenda, so when I'm reading it, I
Yeah.
leave people off.
He was a special addendum.
Good morning to you, Sheriff.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, on May 3rd, 2022, the Sweetwater County Commission approved $990,000 in coronavirus state and local recovery funds for security upgrades at the detention center. So the project consisted of 2 main areas. One, replacing the door control system, including the intercom and integration to the CCTV system. And second, replacing outdated cameras, adding new cameras and increasing locations and storage. So Kubel Group, who was awarded the bid, completed the project just recently in June of 2023 with an unexpended balance of $17,457.09. This specific request is to add a duress button alarm system to the same project, which was identified during testing and not part of the initial Kubel Group security upgrades contract. So in my summary, you'll see that the security grade upgrades or the security upgrades cost of $972,542.91. And then an estimate or a quotation provided by Kubel for an additional $23,570. And that would include the cabling, duress buttons, INO, programming per the quote, for a total cost of $996,112.91. So the funding of this request makes the total project go over by $6,112.91. However, I have some good news. Based on the awards under the last agenda item, there is funding available under that ARPA program. Those bids came in under budget by over $107,000. So The recent project established what is called a proprietary system in the detention center from Kubel Group. And the addition of duress buttons would have to be integrated into their proprietary system. So for this reason, those special buttons cannot go out to bid. So this would be a non-competitive or sole source procurement, which is allowable for these reasons. And that's per federal requirements 2 CFR 200.320. So with that, I have Tim Knight, the IT director here again, and the sheriff. If you have additional questions, I have provided in the packet the estimate for the duress button system for your consideration. With that, we can answer any additional questions.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate the background and explanation on that. Is there any questions or comments on this request, commissioners? It's always nice when things come in under budget to help out another project that's a little over budget, so.
And Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, all this ARPA money under the local and fiscal recovery program has been allocated in fiscal year 24. So the under budget makes it allowable.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
move to approve the Kubel Group estimate 23.08.16.01 for the duress button alarm system of the detention center with coronavirus state and local recovery funds, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents.
you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Christina. Next up is the approval of the fiscal year 2023 Justice Assistance Grant Program interlocal agreement with the City of Rock Springs. We've got Christina with us here again, along with Matthew Register, Sergeant Register from the Rock Springs Police Department. Morning.
I love it when I'm well protected up here from you all.
Makes us feel good too.
Okay, this is agenda item 2 of 3 that I have today. So the City of Rock Springs is eligible to apply for Justice Assistance Grant Funding, or JAG money, that can be used for a broad range of program areas that will improve the functioning of the criminal justice system. So JAG awards are based on a congressionally complicated yet established formula using national violent crime data and population that is first split at the state level and then the local level. Sweetwater County itself is not eligible to receive direct JAG funding this year due to the crime data, but as per the grant rules, it must approve the local project as a community partner. The Rock Springs Police Department is proposing to use the grant funding to hire a consultant to review and update their policies according to case law. So there's no commitment by the county. The eligible funding is $13,100. Have a couple notes. This project is a continuation of last year's project. I also checked with the sheriff's office and they have no issues with this project. If approved, the grant funding would be awarded directly to the City of Rock Springs and would not be passed through Sweetwater County or included in our audit. For your information, I have included the 2023 JAG allocations, and you could see the other counties and entities who received it. It's always a little bittersweet because of the crime data that generates this funding. And with that, I have the real project star, which is Matthew, Register Sergeant of Rock Springs PD, if you want to add anything.
Yes, Commissioner, it's just a continuation of our project from last year. What we're doing is we're pairing with the Daigle Law Group to actually make a robust policy manual, not only for our department, but a model department for the state of Wyoming. So we have the opportunity to kind of be pioneers in that respect of having a policy and procedural manual that others can go by throughout the state that's in accordance with not only the state of Wyoming, but the federal laws as well.
Very good. Thank you both. Any questions on this grant approval, commissioners? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the fiscal year 2023 Justice Assistant Grant Program interlocal agreement with the city of Rock Springs and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Sergeant. Appreciate you coming over. Next is item 12, the approval of the fiscal year 2024 Services to Victims of Crime Grant Contract. And Christina is with us again.
Okay, this last item, Sweetwater County was awarded $99,976 in federal and state funding from the Wyoming Division of Victim Services under the Office of the Attorney General. So the purpose of this funding is to provide services to victims of crime in the community. This includes providing support in community referrals, assisting victims with filing for compensation, providing information about cases and court procedures, accompanying witnesses and victims to court, acting as a liaison with the criminal justice system. So the grant will be used to pay for 2 part-time victim witness coordinator positions who work with one other witness coordinator in the county attorney's office. Together, these employees enforce Wyoming's Bill of Rights in Sweetwater County. In fiscal year 23, they served 790 unduplicated victims and provided 5,270 documented services for 886 crimes. So in terms of the budget, as I mentioned, this is both state and federal funding for 2 part-time employees. It also, the project requires software for tracking those services and for reporting. So of the total budget of $127,394, the county's responsible for 27%. That is due to the software requirement and limitations of the grant funding. It's primarily used for insurance benefits. Some final notes, the county's overage was included in the fiscal year 24 budget or grants projects budget. And just a reminder, back in fiscal year 2021, one full-time 100% county funded employee with the victim witness coordinator was eliminated. So I have attached the lengthy contract in which the core part of the contract was already signed by County Attorney Daniel Aramosby. You're responsible for signing contract attachment A, which is the subgrantee audit requirements that outlines when the audit should be completed, and also contract attachment B, which is certified assurances and special conditions, which are lengthy and part of the federal portion of this contract. And finally, there's a disclosure of lobbying activities. What you can do in your spare time, I guess you can't if you're an employee under this grant. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is a continuation of prior project grant awards.
I do have a question.
Thanks, Christina. Commissioner Tillman.
It says victim assistance, but none of that goes to get them to testify in court, or as far as the victims themselves, it only goes to the employees, not to the victims themselves. Right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tolman, that is correct. This only funds the county employees.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve the fiscal year 2024 services to victims of crime grant contract and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Okay.
Thanks, Christina.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to conclude by wishing Commissioner Toman a happy birthday next week. So.
Oh, you wait till you see the party.
All right, thank you.
That's some
I
surprises.
don't have birthdays anymore.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Sheriff. Next, we're about 4 minutes ahead, which is good. We've got the request approval of the 2024 health insurance renewals and premium rates. With us this morning is our County Human Resources Director, Gary McLean, along with Chris Merrill, the Senior Director of Strategy and Engagement with Diversified Insurance Group, division of IMA Incorporated. Morning to you both, gentlemen.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. We're going to try to work through this. This is an important time of year, as you know. We're ready to do open enrollment for our health insurance program. That's scheduled for October 26th through the 10th of November. In preparation of that, we need to get premiums and plan design issue set, and that's part of our goal for today. So since we have some new faces, I'm just going to take a brief moment and summarize how the plan functions. The county manages a plan for Sweetwater County employees, as well as a number of component units of the county, include Southwest Counseling, the events complex, the senior, library, museum, and Star Transit. And those funds for that plan are in a separate fund, the 510 fund. So they're not commingled with the county 001 main operating fund. Each entity pays premiums to help fund the cost to pay for the claims up to a certain level. Beyond that level, the stop loss level, we pay for reinsurance or stop loss insurance, which covers claims that exceed that $200,000 stop loss limit, so that we minimize and mitigate some of the exposure to the plan. So we take all the premiums, the county pays into that 510 fund, as do all the component units. The claims and the administrative costs are then paid out of that. That's basically how our plan works. We got to this, as Commissioner Slaughter will remember, Blue Cross Blue Shield at one time stopped providing full indemnity plans, forcing the county and a number of entities around the state to self-insure to continue to have insurance. And so we've managed it under that self-funded position ever since. Diversified Insurance, now IMA, they merged with IMA, very large health insurance brokerage and consulting firm. Chris is with us today. I'm going to let him go over some of the plan performance issues and summary, and then we'll talk about the specific recommendations and then take action on those. Let me just in general say that some years you're the windshield and some years you're the bug. This year, fortunately, the plan has done very well, and working with Treasurer Cowan to invest that money that was not spent this year to enhance our ability to absorb those years when we're the bug. And so with that said, I'll let Chris run through some of the trends and performance issues that made this year one of the better years. Obviously, they're not all like that, so take them when you can get them.
For sure. So, and part of me wants to give Christina $24 so we can get $100,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, really? Sorry, that's an aside. But all right, I'm assuming on your computers you can see what I pulled up.
We can see it above you, but we've
Oh,
also got it
I was like,
in our packet.
Where is this happening? So yeah, and you have this all in your packet. So really high level, we just want to cover a couple of things regarding plans. How did the budget work in relation to last year? And we are asking for an increase and kind of explain why that increase. So with you, if you look at this chart, what it does is it shows your plan performance. The yellow column is the claims. That's the part that there's not a whole lot of negotiation on a claim. The hospital bills, we have a contractual rate in place, short of going to, maybe Blue Cross has a different claims or cost structure on the back end, which we don't think they do, but that would be where that yellow line comes into play. The blue line is all in. So that would be your total costs after you count for claims plus administrative costs. So that stop loss that Gary was mentioning, the cost to have UMR be your administrator, those kind of things. And so historically, we've seen some bad years. This year, you'll see on a rolling 12 basis, our claims are higher than the actual administrative cost because of the stop loss that Gary mentions. And we'll talk about that just very high level as well. There's some reimbursements that came that brought our total costs down. Large claims are getting larger. For us personally, for the groups I oversee, the largest claim we've ever seen was $5.3 million. It was a preemie baby at Primary Children's that was there for 410 days. Those are becoming more frequent. There's medications out there. You've got some that are in the $500,000 a year that will be every year ongoing. And so that's some of the pressures that we're seeing. This last year, you've done better than we've seen historically, as far as how you've done as a plan. So that's kind of where we are on a historical basis. And then large claims, as I mentioned, are getting larger. So you'll see in the bottom left, we're at 7 large claims this year, and this is calendar year, not fiscal year. So we're looking from January to now. Claims are not linear, meaning you'll see we're at 7 year to date. It doesn't mean we're going to be at, 14 because we're halfway through the year kind of thing. It doesn't kind of work that way. Your claims are smaller than or you have fewer than we have at previous times at this point. And then they are slightly higher, and you'll see that. And so what's happened is your underlying claims, the regular doctor visits, that kind of thing, are doing better because the large claims, we still have high dollar amounts. And that consists of a few individuals that we won't necessarily get into just for the fact that, it's just people.
By comparison, last year we had 21 large claims. I think we were at 6 or 7. We end up with 7, I think, for this year, and they were smaller. So those, when you look at what affects how well your plan performs, it's not the going to the doctor and checkups and those things. That's remarkably stable. There's slight inflation pressure related to that. It's really how many large claims do you get, how big are those large claims? And that's a very unpredictable part. That's what adds to the volatility, and really why all plans have some good years and some plans that have not so good years.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just the demographics of where you fall. You've been very steady over the last couple of years as far as your enrollment goes. Mix of families to the rest is higher than you would see in the private sector, but you expect that. Your plan is richer than you would see in a lot of private entities. The cost to me as an employee, plus the actual plan design, my co-pays and things like that. Having a $500 deductible, we don't see in the private marketplace hardly at all. So you are the plan of choice, but that is expected for a government entity. So a couple more things and then we'll move on. I mentioned underlying usage versus other usage. So you'll see the top line, that green line, is the large claims. So anything over 25,000 in this scenario. And then the bottom line is the underlying usage. That's the things we can affect with co-pays, co-insurance. Are we going to charge $20 to go to the doctor or $30? Those levers don't do much. As Gary mentioned, large claims are really what's driving things. And it's hard to, change the large claims. The heart attacks, things like that, those just happen. And plan design is not going to impact that. If the claim is $1 million, the fact that our out of pocket went from, say, $3,000 to $4,000 does not impact the plan overall. So there's just some high level. So the last thing I want to show is just kind of where we're at. These are the large claimants. If we talk about some things that may come up, might be pertinent, but you've got some big ones you'll see there. Now stop loss kicks in on a chunk of these, which you see here. This is our 2023 report. So left to right, and this will be the last thing I cover as far as the claims go. You've got your budgeted premium that will ebb and flow based on the actual enrollment, and whether that's a single, two-party, or a family, that'll change that. You'll see the subscribers, so that's employees, and then members is actual belly buttons on the plan. And then you've got your paid claims. So medical split from RX. We've done some things on the prescription that previous commissioners have approved that help us bring those astronomical medication costs down, and you'll see your total. You'll see a specific reimbursement because so far this plan year, we've had somebody cross that threshold, the $200,000 that Gary mentioned. You've got your total, then you've got your cumulative fixed cost, and then we are $700,000 in the positive is what that's showing. So, 5.2 million at 4.5 in total adjusted costs. So that's kind of an overview of the plan and how it's operating. You have more detail in your packets. If you want, we can go in deeper, but I think for the purposes here, that gives us an idea of where we're at as far as planned performance. Any questions on that?
Questions, commissioners?
One thing that I would add is when we have large claims, let's say a $500,000 claim, we pay the $500,000 out of the plan. We then will receive, upon review from the stop loss provider, say 300,000 in that case back if all of those are eligible for stop loss reimbursement. So there is a cash flow management component to this that's important. Is that it typically is 30 to 90 days before you get stop loss reimbursement back. This issue, the one of the primary ones was obviously the issue of pharmaceutical products. As you know, you see in the TV every day, these very high dollar customized pharmaceuticals that are coming out. It's not uncommon to have those in the $200,000 to $500,000 range per year. We have a few of those on our plan now. Those are a major component. We changed a couple of years ago to Smith RX, who has some customized programs to go out and get discounts for people. I think this year was probably the best performance in that regard. I think we had around $250,000 in savings resulting from that. So that was significant. But again, when you look at the main components, you're looking at cancer, MS, preemie babies and pharmaceuticals. And so this year, as you said, we developed a premium amount. How much we have to pay is how much we have to fund into there to pay for the actual cost expenses of the plan for the year. This year, that resulted in the $750,000 savings. We've had years where it was the other side by couple million, $2.5 million. Yeah. So right now, part of the plan is to say, well, going forth, where do we set premiums? So I could easily, if we just look at this from year to year, could say we don't need to do anything. Let's decrease premiums. However, every time we've done that, we've ended up with a 12, 13, 14, 15% increase in premiums in a subsequent year, which is very difficult on all of us to take. And I vowed to the board I would never do that again. Health insurance costs are never going to go down. They'll never in our lifetime go down short of some sort of governmental intervention. The medical costs overall average about 8% to 10% inflation. So there's always going to be that upward trend on it. But I don't think that there's, when we originally met with the component units, Commissioner Richards attended that meeting prior to setting the budgets, because we're talking January to January is when our plan design starts and open enrollment, but our budgets are July to July. So the estimate that we provided to them at that time was 8%. We don't see any reason for it to be that high for this year, but we still are recommending essentially a 5% increase to premiums, to contribution rates. And I don't see that ever going much below that. It'd have to be a really extraordinary event, because the swings with these large claims are in the millions of dollars swings. And so really what you're trying to do is build a plan and fund that can absorb some of those without huge increases on either end. So you want to just run down the recommendations. So what we're going to do, and I'm not sure what's easiest for the board, because we have components of the plan. So there's, medical, vision, dental, stop loss. We can either present them in the recommendations and adopt it as a whole, or if you want to do them piece by piece, we can stop and answer any questions regarding that. It may be easier to just do it piece by piece.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Simplifies.
So on the medical, as Gary mentioned, we are asking for an increase. You've got to get in your packet as well. So we're looking at roughly a 5%. You'll notice the different plans. We have 5. We've created plans for the various component units to meet their needs. Like the cheapest plan was for the event center because you have the lowest paid employees. So we are proposing an overall 5, but it is adjusted based upon how each individual plan is running to a certain extent to pass on a commensurate share. So if the really rich plan is running the worst, it's going to maybe see a slightly higher increase, and you'll see that there is a 6% in here on the $1,500 plan, and that's driven by it's just running a little worse than the others. you'll see that the $4,000 deductible has very few enrollment. It was meant to meet ACA affordability. That's the whole reason we created it 5-6 years ago. Is for ACA affordability for the event center, and they're at the time like $10 an hour employees. And so that's our overall, and then the high deductible plan is slightly lower, just because it's running slightly better than the others. As Gary mentioned, we could almost take a decrease if we just looked at raw plan performance. Medical trend is the highest we've seen it ever, so medical inflation. And a lot of it's staffing costs. I don't know what you follow as far as medical stuff. Obviously, I'm pretty involved in some of that. But Regents Blue Cross, which is Utah's Blue Cross entity in the University of Utah, went down to with 2 days left on their contract, and it made a very public dispute. We know somebody that's on the board at the U, and they're saying we're losing money right now given staffing costs. And so they probably got the most increase they've seen in a long time. Nobody's giving facts, but we think between 10 and 15% was their contractual increase with Blue Cross. So that's some of the pressures that we're seeing in addition to these really, really large claims. So that's proposal one, is that's the increases we're looking at on the medical plan. At no point do I think we would ever want a decrease. We may have flat at some point. This is probably not the year for that. It's the year we've been the most conservative because we set the rates through our actuarial system. It's not, there's not a provider or an insurance company to negotiate with other than that stop loss that Gary talked about. Questions on the rates?
Any questions or comments on the medical rates?
One thing that I would just add, just for clarity, for those of you that are new to the board, I can't even remember how many years ago now, but 15 or more. Prior to the Affordable Care Act, individuals that needed to retire and that had compelling health issues couldn't get insurance if they retired before Medicare age. And at that time, the county offered eligibility for retirees to stay on the county's plan as a way of providing continuous coverage. So we have about 65 retirees that are still under the plan, some pre-65 and some post-65. They're not in a separate retiree plan, although the post-65s are in a carve-out, much like a Medicare supplement. But be that as it may, the recommended increases for the various plans will apply to the retirees also because they're part of the group. They're not in a separate group, separate retiree group. They're simply not big enough to stand on their own. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
They pay their own premium though, right?
That's correct.
At some point, we may talk about removing them and having them do their thing because ACA removed that inability for them to get their own insurance. So we'll see at some point. It's something we bring up on a regular basis.
Any questions on the medical side?
Commissioner Richards?
Just on that subject, have we seen any trend on our retirees moving to ACA because it's more affordable for them, or is that?
We haven't. For the Medicare people, they're the ones that should move because they have more options available. In the system as it stands in the individual marketplace, which is the Obamacare or ACA marketplace, there's not a breadth of options. I mean, you had Win Health that got pulled out, some examples of that. We haven't seen wholesale moves because it's not really cheaper in that the older you get, the more expensive it gets because it's what's called age banded. So we haven't seen this big move. There are some subsidies from the federal government if you are have a certain income, but you've got people retiring at 45 or 50 that are going and getting, kind of double dipping, I guess is the term. And so their income isn't such that they're going to get those subsidies. So we haven't seen this movement. We've tried to educate and go some of that route, but there's just not been this compelling argument for them fiscally.
But there has been more retirees that have elected to take some of the market options because they're equal or maybe a little less expensive for certain individuals. So the numbers of our retirees has gone down over time, I think was the question you were kind of getting at. That has decreased. So we have less people on the plan each year on the total retiree plans. For folks that are Medicare age, I think they could save money. Why people choose to stay, I don't know. I think it's something that's a known quantity for those folks. But I think where we're looking at going forth is the reason the county offered the program was because employees could not, especially those that had existing health conditions, which we almost all have by the time we get to that point in our life, that precluded them from getting affordable coverage. Either one, they wouldn't get coverage at all, or two, the prices were so unreasonable, nobody could afford it. That doesn't exist today. The legislation has taken that away. So the question is that something that is even a good use of our time and money and effort at this point? And we're going to talk about that this year a little bit more, given the trends. But right now, we do have a mix of those, and about 10 years ago, some of the commission subsidized those rates to keep it more affordable. So that's the additional incentive that some people, that's going to be hard there, as people get old enough and move on, there's, less and less of those subsidized people on the plan, but there still are some of them on the plan.
But you still offer it to new retirees. Okay.
Currently, yeah, and
Just
that's
at
a
the full cost.
that's right.
Yeah, without the subsidy. Which the hope was we'd get less of them to uptake, which we have seen.
Any other comments or questions? So we want to handle this individually and approve the suggested medical health insurance rate as presented.
I think it's a little easier just for clarity.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2024 Sweetwater County Health Insurance medical rates as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
So these next few items, dental, vision, and life insurance, disability, they are a very, very small portion of the overall plan costs. The next one was to do is Delta Dental. We haven't had any real significant increases for quite some time. We had paid for Delta Dental insurance as a full indemnity. We bought insurance from them, and then maybe 3 years ago or so, we self-funded it because they were making a lot of money on us and had some significant savings. And so we have had an increase in some of both the dental costs, and so that one we're recommending a 11% increase in that. Again, the dollar amount of that is very small.
We have seen a lot of that. Dental this year is weird. We thought coming out of COVID, it would have been more of a reaction. We do think that some of it's delayed because people didn't go to the dentist during COVID. And so you've seen this uptick. And so this is just claims driven. And it's probably average. And just as an aside on your medical, at that 5%, you are well below market averages this year. We're seeing up to 16% as our average, with the highest being a 53% increase this last year. They're talking about getting rid of insurance completely. So 11 is commensurate with what we're seeing in the marketplace on the dental. So that would be the next ask, is approving the dental at the 11%. You'll see the dollar amounts. It's not a lot dollar wise. It sounds bigger than it actually is.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Commissioner Tillman.
Can you explain the self-insure? You said that if you stayed with them, it was going to be too much. They were going to make too much. So how do you self-insure and still do it with?
For less. So there's a margin between what a company wants to make in profit. And when you're self-funded, you remove some of that margin from the equation, because if they miss their target as far as the renewal or, the premiums for the upcoming year, there's not a mechanism to go back and claw that money back from the insurance company. You just gave it to them.
Oh.
And we were consistently running better than the insurance company was saying, we think you'll run, which isn't always the case. I mean, insurance companies do lose money in given years. That's the 53% one I just mentioned. So going self-funded, we remove some of that profit margin, and all you do is pay the claims and then a small administrative fee. So for dental, it's like $6 per employee per month.
Oh.
And that's for Delta Dental to do customer service, give you, so that we don't have to do that.
And doing is you're taking the risk. So yeah, so when you buy insurance, they're taking the risk. And in Wyoming, as I said earlier, Blue Cross got out of that business because they couldn't manage the risk for the large groups in the state. But on the dental side, the plan design is such the risk is not subject to these large increases. So it seems like was an appropriate area. We've made and saved quite a bit of money doing this.
So okay, if I go to the dentist, does Delta Dental pay the dentist the full amount and then collect back from the county for the self-insured
Basically,
amount?
The contractual. So
Yeah,
the dentist
okay.
bills, say $100. The
Yeah.
contract's like $70, maybe 60. It's way more than I can negotiate for a cash rate,
Right.
which I don't understand as a dentist. I will pay you right now, give me the same deal you're giving Delta Dental, they don't.
Yeah.
So it's up to 40%. So Delta will pay that $60 to the dentist and then they send us a bill.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
One of the things that's important to note in that, though, is in Wyoming, you probably heard this, it's been a subject of the various sessions of the legislature, continues to be a problem. There's way more need for dentists in Wyoming than there are dentists. And as classes retire, this is going to continue to be a problem. Why is that significant to us? Because when they go out and you want to negotiate prices, what you're trying to say is, I want you to come to my plan, my group, Delta Dental, and we'll direct all our customers to you. If all the dentists have more people than they can see, which is the case in most of Wyoming, what would be their incentive to offer much of a discount?
And we see that in Moab. There are, of the 3 dentists that are kind of there, 2 don't take insurance at all. It's just cash.
There's no incentive
There's
for
no
them.
incentive for them at all.
So,
Um,
that's a theme in Wyoming insurance period, because there's almost always a need that exceeds the availability of services. Then there's lots of groups and lots of providers. And in order to get that business, they give significant larger discounts. I'm just going to throw out some numbers, but if you said in Wyoming, the discount that Blue Cross and UMR are getting from providers, say 10 to 15%, in Salt Lake, 25, 40% discount. So that's what, having competitive services does in those areas. So.
And specific to the dental, we haven't taken an increase for a couple of years with the knee-jerk reaction that we're seeming to see across all our groups for dental costs. It's really being driven by that. I don't anticipate this is ongoing by any stretch. It's a one-time adjustment based on what's happening.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Sweetwater County dental insurance rate for 2024 as presented.
I'd make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Next one's vision. Super simple. It's being increased because we're increasing the availability of materials. We're adding anti-glare and blue blocker to the what the insurance will pay for. That hasn't been there before. So you want to talk about little dollars. This is little dollars, but that's what it's done. Since a lot of us are now working on computer screens, before I would have to pay if I wanted that, extra treatment on my glasses. And now we're just rolling that into the plan. We felt, given that the computer work that we're all seeming to do, it just made sense to add on.
So when you look at the prescriptions that are written by most eye care professionals today, unless they're very minor, almost all of them come with anti-glare recommendations. And in fact, high astigmatism causes a lot of problems with glasses that don't have anti-glare. So that's something that you see a lot. It's part of our work environment. Even in law enforcement, they're spend a lot of time on computers in their cars at fixed distances. This is an area where I think that planned change will be very targeted and effective, because this is an area that employees are consistently trying to address the changing, where the work demographics are in an office at the distance you all are from your computer. I think this is an important one. Just as an aside, these lights that you see in here, your computer screens, the primary thing that affects people is blue light. It's the blue light emission. As the Kelvin changes, that goes up or goes down. But it's the blue light that seems to cause the most difficulty for people. And this seems a very low cost way to benefit a significant number of people with very little costs under the plan. So
if we don't elect that provision, it is flat on the vision. It is 100% driven by the enhancement to the actual plan itself.
Okay. Questions or comments on the vision plan, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Sweetwater County vision insurance for the 2024 year as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
The last one is Lincoln Financial. I think last year was our first year with them. They provide life insurance, long-term disability. And we're in the first year of a 3-year agreement, so there's no change to the rate with them for those services. So we're locked in until 2026.
Okay. Does that require action to continue on with them? Or is it part of a 3-year contract that we don't need to worry about?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
just wanted, we're already committed to
Informational.
3-year rate guarantee under that contract, so. I just wanted to make sure we understood that once. The last part of that is we have a rate increase. Chris says that he's not making enough money.
Whoa, that was not how I worded that.
So
we've been flat with the county for a number of years, and so we're asking.
well,
for-
since we accepted them in the thing, like 7 years, so. Just for those of you that are new on the board, we really use Diversified or now IMA since they've merged in 2 primary capacities. One is as a broker. So when we need to go out and get stop loss rates or get quotes, they provide that service, which we are not able to do effectively. The second thing, and probably more importantly, is that we get access to data and trends and plan design issues that obviously we dabble in. That's what they do day to day. We obtain a wealth of information, especially now that they've merged with IMA in also other human resource management areas. And data, as Chris referred to, about trends, what other industry standards are for rate increases and prices, stuff that is very hard for us to touch without that. And so throughout the year, we meet with them regularly to talk about how well the plan's doing. We meet with the component units a couple times a year to try to make sure, because we're all in different businesses, if you will. It's in providing public services, but they have different competitive priorities. And so we try to incorporate that feedback as we move forward, and also to help plan for the future. But the reality is, for every industry, this is a significant part of our costs. For those of you that looked at the budget, 77% of our budget is employee costs. So the most significant thing we manage is this. The total amount of this fund is in excess of $11 million a year. So this is a very big, important part of the county business model, an important part of employee benefits. So the last thing, I guess, would be to improve. I'm not sure what page that's on the package, but the
agreement of services.
Yeah,
for services.
yeah. So we'll need that to be authorize the chairman to sign and approve that agreement with the small rate increase.
Any questions or comments on the agreement for services with, looks like IMA commissioners?
Chairman. Gary, what you're saying is Chris is worth it.
You know, as of right now, sometimes it's been a little iffy, but no,
Debatable on certain days, yes.
one thing I would like to point out, for all, because I know that each of you has liaison relationships with the various component units. Please communicate with them. This doesn't have to be a one size fit all. People are engaged on this topic at various levels. But there are opportunities to do things with plan design, premium structure, and other things. So if there's concerns, we'd be happy to meet with them individually or collectively to look at options, to evaluate options that may meet their needs. In general, I would say this, that with larger groups, the day-to-day cost becomes very predictable. I think you see that in our plan, the doctor's visits and those things. Even the large claims, to a certain extent, are smoothed a little bit as the group gets larger. That doesn't necessarily mean that adding to it means better, because you can have unhealthy groups or healthier groups, but certainly as you get smaller, both of those become more difficult to manage because the swings get to be bigger and your contribution levels make it more and more volatile. And so I think we're fortunate in that sense. But we're going to continue to look at opportunities. Please let your respective agencies that you liaison with, if they have any questions, to reach out. They're available to help address any specific needs they have. Also, and we try to provide regular data. Obviously, this isn't their primary business. So, but if they have questions, as you know, costs are going to continue to be a challenge for all of us relative to available funding. So please mention that to them.
I appreciate that. As I mentioned in my comments, had some discussion at the Southwest Counseling meeting, and obviously it's an area that's not in my everyday wheelhouse. So Gary's been helpful in going over pretty much everything that we've discussed here today, and we'll likely lean on him to help explain some of those uncertainties to that board as well. But
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, a little bit what Keaton's referring to, not every component unit funds, meaning the amount, the percentage that the organization pays in versus the employee is identical. It's up to them how much the premiums need to be the premium so that we can pay claims, but the percentage that the organization versus the employee pays is up to their respective boards. So part of the reason why this is important today is once we get premium set, then their individual boards can decide, yes, we can contribute that much and fund at that level, or we can't.
yeah,
So just wanted to clarify that.
which is something to take back to your component units, because the timing of it was it worked in that realm, but as he stated earlier, we were anticipating an 8% increase, and now we've just approved 5%. So that should offer some savings for some of these participating agencies. So is there any other comments or questions on this agreement for services?
Well, there's some typos. They don't seem to affect the meaning of the item, but on item 4, I've already found 3 typos.
Well, we sell insurance. We don't edit copy. I don't know what to say, Commissioner. I apologize, though.
Well, it's a legal document. It's kind of
Yes.
confusing.
If you can approve the essence, we will correct the typos. How's that for a?
Yeah, I don't mean to call it out, but it is kind of distracting.
As Commissioner Chairman West indicated, as I think it is important, because we have to budget before the plan year is in place, we have to forecast what we think the premiums might be. So when the budget comes around in June, we meet with the component units, actually earlier than that, but meet with them. And history has told us that it's very problematic if you're on the low end of that and you have to increase that in the process. So we try to err a little bit on the high side in terms of the budget amount. This year, we estimated 8, which I think was a reasonable estimate where we were at that time. Now we're looking at 5. So there should be a little bit of savings for each of those 3%. If you wanted to look at what the costs were, if any of the entities want to know what that means to them, I'd be happy to give them a specific dollar amount on that if they're unsure of what that means to them. But I think it's easier for us and for them to manage than the reverses, especially as that's late in the budget cycle, to project that if money has to be put back in, it's always harder to go that route. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken.
Okay, well, Commissioner Richards.
Just gonna say, I move to approve the agreement for services with IMA and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents.
Do you have a motion to approve the agreement for services with IMA for calendar year 2024 by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you all.
Chris, Gary, we appreciate the information. The background always helps. It's information overload up here for the 9th month in a row. So it's always good to try and get down to the inner details so that we can
We know you guys are gonna go to lunch and say, hey, can we just discuss some of those health insurance plan ideas? And I'm
I just want to say I'm impressed you kept it to only 10 minutes past our lunch.
good, yeah.
I was trying, so. Thank you all.
No, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. That does bring us up to our lunch break at noon. We're about 10 minutes behind. We'll go ahead and break for lunch. Hope to be back by 1.